We reconvene for Liberty Conspiracy Live here on Rumble and on X. I'm LG Grande. Buenos, whatever time zone you might call home. Thank you for joining us in the conspiracy, the place where we gather to plot and plan and crouch and conspire for greater days of freedom ahead, the days of the light of liberty shining down upon us, and we get to share ideas. We break apart the news of the day and try to drive long-standing lessons for liberty out of those things because, of course, freedom is out of fashion nowadays. You can join us on X. You can get your comments in over there. You can also join us on Rumble inside the fruit stripe gum colors in the chats. And if you're watching after the facts, of course, you can pause it on Rumble and share any of the video production material that we've got to offer to you. And you can offer your thoughts and links underneath it at any time. Just drop them there if you want people to be checking those out after the show as well. And you can always go to my Substack. Check out the news notes on the Substack. If you're one of the paid subscribers there, that's Monday through Friday. And then on Sundays, it's the Sunday News Assembly. That's always free, and I hope people find it valuable. Want to offer you some really good cheer on the end of the day here in Moscow, Hampshire, as we spread the Russian propaganda. And I hope your day was wonderful. And I hope you'll have a really good night with us. For a couple hours, we're going to be delving into the news and hopefully getting some long-standing intellectual ammunition to share with our friends, our progeny, and defend liberty. Standing on the shoulders of giants, just average people trying to be free. If you know my work from MRC TV, thanks for coming over. I didn't advertise the Liberty Conspiracy on MRC TV, so you had to do a little extra effort, and I really appreciate that. And if you're one of the folks who's donated this week, it's been absolutely wonderful. We'll talk about more opportunities for people to donate. If you want to get involved, you can become a subscriber over at the Substack, and hopefully we're giving you that value back. You can always donate on Rumble. You can get involved by joining Wise Wolf Gold and Silver Exchange through my Substack. And yes, gold and silver are very, very strong right now. I saw gold was up near 54 last time I checked. So we're going to have a lot to talk about: economics, ethics, philosophy, and breaking news with our news flash and your comments. You can be the professor. I'll be the professor sometimes, and we'll share our ideas. I hope you've had a wonderful day, everybody. Let's get started. Say hi to everybody inside the X chat first, where if, again, you want your comments seen on the screen, the Russians, because I only follow the Russian propaganda meisters telling me what to say, they will tell me that your comment is on the screen, like fellow conspirator Martin Thorne, streaming like white water. Ha ha! Yes, my friends, we'll be going down those rapids, right, brother? Thank you, streaming like white water. Hopefully not like I'm going to get killed by, anybody in the Clinton administration or anything like that, right? Also in Rumble, I want to say hi right off the bat. Got to see a lot of folks, as I was saying, a quick hello as the theme was running, actually. KWD68 is there. Real Jason Barker is there. Taylor Saunders is there. The great Karen Carpenter, 27. And there are 26 of her before that. That's how many you need of Karen Carpenter. That's how awesome she is. And a lot of other great folks, I'm sure, are going to be joining as the night progresses. By the way, if you see the show afterwards and you get the opportunity to share it, please tell people to join us. And again, if they have ideas for stories or anything like that, just contact me on the backside of X. I always welcome your comments. And it's always really a positive to find out about somebody's thinking about a certain story. If I missed anything like that, I try to be as open as possible about that, because that was the way that it really functioned beautifully in classrooms. It was always a great exchange. So I appreciate you being open to my ideas, and I'll be open to your ideas as well, and we'll see what happens. So let's see what's happening tonight on the program, everybody, for this News Notes 10-16-25. That's right. A little advertisement once more. If you want to get involved with the News Notes and you want to be a paid subscriber, just head on over there to my Substack. It's the Gardner Goldsmith Substack right now. I'm not calling it the Liberty Conspiracy Substack. And as some people know, the reason I'm doing that is because I'm sort of going to be including my fiction work over there as I start to promote my novels and things like that. So I thought, well, why not keep it all under Liberty Conspiracy? Nah, keep it under Gardner Goldsmith. That probably be the way. And then some people, maybe they're looking for my fiction. They might find some of the Liberty Conspiracy stuff there, and maybe they'll check it out. So I think I'm gonna keep it that way. We'll see how it goes there. So let's see what's on tap for this 10-16-25, this 82nd day of October 1978. Let's look forward to the 16th of October, 2025, and find out what's on tap as, of course, we check out our secondary sound system with our big corporate music friends, Genesis, or perhaps Humpty D and Digital Underground. Tonight. Sing it, Phil. Oh, yeah. There's nothing gets you cheered up like hearing Tonight by Genesis. Now, if that sounded a little different, don't forget, Anthony Fauci was a DJ. He is the musical science. He did a PCR test at 40 trillion cycles, detected a small bit of the same note that Genesis might have used. That's a Genesis song. So remember, trust the musical science. Anything else, we're going to ship you to the gulag. It might be El Salvador. We're not quite sure yet. We'll talk to Pam Bondi. But you're clearly an illegal alien. Out of here. So let's find out what the illegal aliens are looking at tonight on the news flash, everybody. You got it. The big news, Bolton has been belted. Whack! Whack, whack, whack! Yes, indeed. That's right. He's got indicted. He got himself an indictment. So now he can join the Donald Trump party. In fact, Donald Trump is a convicted felon, but, we'll just go on from there. So we'll give you the Bolton story. It's not a huge deal. Again, it just calls into question my position with the government, perhaps maybe you. I don't really know about the power balance here, but we'll talk about it. We'll also get into the major story, Trump's utter nonsense regarding tariffs, a statement that he offered regarding India, which I don't necessarily want to dwell on every single statement from a politician, that back and forth tit for tat stuff. But this is internationally important. It has a bearing on your bottom line and living standards. And it reflects an utter contempt for economic truth, which is that tariffs are always bad. And he's lying. So we'll talk about what he said about India, and we'll discuss Scott Bessent, as Angry Tiger mentioned last night on his show, calling for massive U.S. bailouts, or as he calls them, price floors. Yes, price floors. You can get those with wood floors now, or kitchen tile. They're going to come really expensive now if you get them from another country, though. So there'll be 100% tariff on all your wood cabinetry. Looking forward to that. Of course, this is not fascist economics in any way, is it? No, of course it's not. Also, we'll talk about stories from the released hostages, telling real stories, not Laura Loomer lunacy, returning from Gaza. We have a couple stories to tell you on the tail end of what we got to hear from Greta Thunberg yesterday about how she was treated, and I trust her 100% on that. Because other people had similar experiences. And I don't think they all coordinated from boat to boat to say, hey, listen, if we get captured, tell a story that's kind of similar to what we're going to tell. I don't think they did that. Also, we're going to talk immigration police state. Big news coming out of the courts as Chicago fights back. We'll tell you about that. And we'll also dive into jobs numbers just released for September. Information about retailers. Sorry to darken the skies over your neck of the woods, but our economic necks are on the chopping blocks. We'll talk about the package delivery companies. They're all down. Not good. And I need a positive. So the Russians are telling me that Brian's in the house along with Martin over on X. Brian, welcome, my friend. Good to have you there, buddy. I like it. You're looking very dapper, my friend, the Toad. Looking very dapper. And I see people are talking about Blondie. Ah, yes, indeed. I wish it were. Wouldn't it be great if, like, Debbie Harry were there instead of Pam Bondi, and it was Blondie, and she just started singing like Rapture, or something like that. Call me. That'd be it, and she just walks away and doesn't do anything. We'd be safer. It'd be cool. I'd like that. A little New York punk. Ah, yes, indeed. And then KWD, KWD, I was thinking about getting this song out and recording part of it. Illegal Alien by Genesis. He's mentioning Illegal Alien. That was a pretty good one. That's the album that had Mama on it. That was sort of the standout, Mama. And when they do that live, man, I got to tell you, Phil Collins looks really crazy when it does that. They did a great job on that live. Oh, yes, my man. All right, you guys, let's get rolling. It's time to get started. Don't forget, if you get the opportunity, please do something nice. Remember our corporate sponsors. Let's hear from our corporate sponsor, Voice Guy. Are you there? Is he there? Oh, he's not here? He was an illegal alien? Oh, man. Are you kidding me? We can't even go with our corporate sponsor tonight. What the heck? I thought the Russians are telling me he's an illegal alien and they've shipped him to El Salvador. He's doing ads for the government of El Salvador now to get out of prison. He's going to turn state's evidence against Kilmar Abrigo Garcia and totally lie. Wow. I guess that's what you get when you fight for pro-liberty. You get waylaid by the, well, I'm here, guard. No, I escaped. I'm on the run from the TSA. I'm on the run from ICE. And tonight's corporate sponsors are, don't forget, the weather's getting colder. So you got to get the heater from hell in your house. That's right. 500,000 dead children and women in Iraq. And that was just half of it. Well, she said it was worth it. So just keep it in mind. Perhaps she asked for forgiveness, but it's highly doubtful. Get a little piece of hell in your house. Remember, everybody, it's almost like having an EV. It could explode at any time. Also brought to you by the wonderful Ouroboros. As Sal the Agorist and Angie noted, the registered voter seems to be treading on himself and, of course, his neighbor. Because, as Frederick Bastiat said, the state is that great fiction by which everyone tries to live off of everyone else. Back to you. Uh-oh, I gotta get out of here. I think it's Pam Bondi, or is it Blondie? Back to you, G-Man. All right, that was pretty good. I like that. He escaped from the planet of the apes. I love it. Now, let's go to another destination. It may be on the planet that is ruled by apes in the future, and maybe they would rule better than the apes that are in D.C. I don't know, but let's go to Gardner Street in Allston, Massachusetts, just west of the Kenmore Square, where you see the Citgo sign for Fenway Park, just beyond Fenway Park, and where we shot the film Skippy Benderman. It's time, of course, for the News Flash.
Yes? Oh, hello. Hello. We're Mary's parents. Oh, well, come on in, fellas. Hold it a second. Mary's parents burned to death last year. Wait a minute. I know you guys. You're from the News Flash.
Oh, man, I'm blown away by that. What a great sound. That is a really well-produced song. You got to hand it to Queen. Even on their cheesy stuff, they produced it pretty darn well. You know, like Radio Gaga. They still produce that pretty darn well. All right, I got to ask you a quick question before we do anything else. Please do us a service. Like you're chewing bubblegum on an ABC Saturday morning program. Please check it out, my friends, and share with us the you-know-whats. Yes, that's right. I would love it if you could share with us the Lancelot links. So just if you get the opportunity, head on over, check out the links, and perhaps you too could become a member of, what was that group that they had? What were they called? What was it? Oh, there was Chimp, no, Ape and Chump, I think it was, wasn't it?
Lancelot Link, secret chimp. Stands for justice, he has no fear. He's the agent to call when trouble is near. Lance Link, you gotta come through. Everybody is counting on you. Beating out of heaven, and each and every remnant shall stick by your side right to the end. Darwin is the leader on the side of the hood. Fight jump ages like a good ape should. Oh, Lance Link, what you gonna do? You gotta stop the jump, job is up to you. Better beware.
Oh, better beware of Baron. And that perhaps that's Baron von Trump. I don't know. Watch out for the Baron. All right, my friends, let's get rocking it, everyone. We're going to have a great time tonight. I want to do a quick review of a few of the things that we've covered over the past few days so we don't get news cycle amnesia, just to sort of lock in some of the statements of people like J.D. Hayworth, people like Hegseth and others, so that those are remembered. And, you know, occasionally it's really, really healthy to bring back some of these statements, like David Knight will do that. I like to do that. Rush Limbaugh would do that a lot. G. Gordon Liddy would do that sort of thing when G. Gordon was on as well. And so I like to do that. But before we do that, let's go to the Bolton story. If you go to the news notes, you'll see, of course, that John Bolton is in the news, and he's in the news. Why? Yes, that's right, because Mr. Bolton has gotten into some trouble. So, yeah, let's hear from our friend. I think he might need a little defense attorney. What do you think? You think maybe he's going to be calling our black and white friend from Earl Stanley Gardner's imagination, otherwise known as, you got it, is that John Bolton's criminal record? Well, it could be. Let me hand it on over to the prosecutors. Hey, this looks pretty good. Check out John Bolton. This is great. Ah, yeah, what a great theme. You got to love it. Can you imagine if you were Earl Stanley Gardner, like, hey, they're going to make a TV show for you. Like, wow, this is pretty cool. And then they come in like, here, we're just getting started. Here's the theme. Like, seriously, dude? Wow, this is epic. I'm digging this. Yeah, very cool. All right, here it is, everybody. Bolton is indicted. But unlike many people in other countries who have had trouble with the U.S. government and that John Bolton wanted to get blasted apart, he has not been hit by any bombs or anything. He's just getting hit by a legal bomb. So NBC News reports that ex-Trump advisor John Bolton indicted by a federal grand jury. And of course, if you're in New Orleans, that's grand jury. A federal grand jury indicted former National Security Advisor Johnny Boy Bolton on Thursday. Not Manute Bol, a senior Justice Department official said. Johnny Boy Bolton is the third person to be hit with federal charges in the last month after President Donald Trump called for their prosecution. Of course, it has to do with paperwork that they say he made off with. Bolton was indicted in federal court in Maryland, where he lives, and where prosecutors have been investigating whether he improperly retained classified materials following his acrimonious departure from the first Trump administration. The other two prominent political adversaries to face charges in recent weeks are former FBI Director James Comey and New York Attorney General Letitia Jujubin James. Those are their real names. I don't know if you know that. They had to change them. Just like they took the jabs. Those are their real names. Bolton's lawyer, Abby Lowell, no relation to Lowell, Massachusetts, has maintained that the former diplomat had handled records appropriately. The FBI conducted searches of Bolton's Maryland home and his Washington, D.C. office in August. The redacted search warrant application showed law enforcement cited Bolton's 2020 book pre-publication preview and the hack of Bolton AOL account by foreign entity as a basis for probable cause to search his residence and office. And it's always great when you do stuff online too, because they can just drop stuff in there if they wanted to. We found some evidence. Really? I don't do anything online. Hey, where's your house located? When are you going to be away? We just, you're getting some flooring delivered. Yes, that's right. We're going to deliver your Madeline Albright heater. There's some new paperwork there. I didn't know that was there. Oh, no, it's always been there. It's always been. Who cares? Whatever. Who cares? John Bolton is a warmonger. He has shown himself to be clearly close to unhinged many times. He has no concept about human ethics and the idea of individual natural rights, and seems to think that the world is his chess playing place. So I don't know whether this case is ginned up about him, but I do know one thing. A lot of people are dead in the world because of that guy. So that's all I'm going to say. Whether this is justice or not, I don't know. The other facet, again, is if there are all these secret documents and we're forced to pay for the secret documents, why is it that we can't see them? And they say it's for our own protection. Why is it that these things are so sensitive that nobody can even look at them if they've been in the government and they've been granted that magic pixie dust? That's how dangerous these things are. Are we at war? We? No, we're not. Okay. But they say we are America, and yet you can't see the paperwork you paid for. Now, I've got to follow up on the Hegseth Pentagram reporter loyalty oath. Yes, indeed, everybody. Let me give you this one. And I just want to ask you a question. You know, I mentioned how DC Drano was talking about how there were certain powers for tariffs in Article 2. Remember that? And he was almost Steve Bannon about 2 months ago. He was like, oh, you should oppose these tariffs. He could do that under Article 2. The guy's a lawyer. DC Drano. What's his real name? I can't even remember I can't remember his name is. But anyway, Ryan O'Hanley. That's it. Ryan O'Hanley. He doesn't seem to have a real handle of logic of the Constitution or of the fact that he went to law school and maybe didn't get the best education there. They gave him a degree and somehow maybe he passed the bar, but he's clearly so bereft of any knowledge of the Constitution that if you got close to it, you might feel like you got sucked into a black hole. There's nothing there. It's absorbing all light. It's not good. You don't want to reach the event horizon. You're going to never come out. You'll see Maximilian Schell down there with a Disney movie. That's the way it's going to be. This is just, check out what this guy has to say in his petulant, uptight way that somehow maybe he might want to take a second look at what he was actually saying. Check this out. In the news notes, I'll give you the comment that I offered in the news notes. Here's what Eric Doherty said. Breaking. The Pentagon has just confiscated the badges of nearly every major media organization in the United States, barring their access after they refused to sign on to Pete Hegseth's news security rules, otherwise known as a loyalty oath. Katherine Heigl. Reporters were seen leaving, and it was cool. They all lined up. They took pictures like, hey, how you doing? Maybe we'll get on a new flotilla to try to bring food to Gaza. Today, the Defense Department confiscated the badges of the Pentagon reporters from virtually every major media organization in America. It did this because reporters would not sign on to a new media policy. It's just a policy. It's a pageant over its implicit threat of criminalizing national security reporting and exposing those who sign it to potential prosecution, the Pentagon Press Association said. Remember when a lot of MAGA people were mentioning that Barack Obama tried to prosecute more whistleblowers and reporters under the Espionage Act than all presidents combined up to that point from World War I when the Espionage Act was created, of course, unconstitutionally. And remember when MAGA people were like, hey, man, you know, maybe we ought to have a right to be able to say stuff without getting slammed by NewsGuard, right? Yeah, you remember that? Remember that? No, I remember those days, too. They're distant days. I think it was the Paleolithic. Not the Neolithic, because that's too soon. Paleolithic. We're talking old days, you know, like knuckles dragging on the ground. It was tough. They didn't even have gloves in those days. They needed they couldn't even import them. You know, they had the tariffs. You know how it is. So, yeah. Remember those days? They're not complaining now. They're happy about it because DC Drano is a perfect example. He says this. Can someone please tell me why I'm supposed to care that Democrat reporters don't get to walk the halls of the Pentagon and solicit sensitive military info? This seems like a slam dunk win. No, it seems like you don't know anything about what you're discussing. It seems like you have no concept of the idea of a free press. It seems like you don't even understand what the Constitution says. It seems like you don't understand that we're not supposed to be a perpetual war. There's not supposed to be a standing army. They're not supposed to be all these super secret things. Have you ever had a concept of, I think the word is, hypocrisy, Mr. Drano? Have you ever thought about the Tower of Babel and how they tried to raise it up to heaven, that they themselves could challenge God? Well, that's about as high as your hypocrisy is running. You're going to get a nosebleed up there. You might want to step down from your highfalutin spot there, take off your knickers and your buckle shoes, and actually talk to people who are trying to be reporters. Because if the shoe were on the other foot, the buckle shoe, Mr. Drano, and this were the Biden administration, I think you might have something to say in protest. Maybe, just maybe. Maybe a loyalty oath to the state isn't the best idea when reporting on a state that, I don't know, how about just reporting on a state? How about loyalty oaths, regardless of what they're doing? I don't know. Mr. Drano. But remember, he knows best. As he told you, it's right there in Article 2, the tariff power. Remember that now. Hey, you want to have a good time reading tonight until you fall asleep? Try to find that in Article 2. You'll have a good time. You can call up DC Drano. And by the way, I offered him the opportunity to talk to me. I mentioned it to Steve Bannon. You know, I don't know if he ever saw it. I tried to draw his attention to it. I waved around a bunch of Israeli cash from AIPAC and the ADL. Here you go. Here you go. I got a bunch of money here, Drano. You want it? Here you go. Smells like Israeli genocide. I know you love it. Here, you want some? And he didn't call. I don't know why. I don't know why he didn't call, because he seems to love Israel. Then, you know what I did? I gave him an empty Epstein binder. I said, hey, dude, if you throw it in the air, it comes right back to you like a boomerang. You want one? And he didn't take my offer. I said, dude, I'd love for you to chat with me on my show. Why don't you join me? And he just wouldn't do it. It was very sad, but that's okay, because Hegseth, I supply his hair gel. I'm in the money. All right. So there you go. Now, I want to go back to the news notes, get your thoughts, and check in with everybody, see what's going on with y'all over at Rumble. Oh, man, I'm having a good time. Oh, yes. Okay, so I see KWD is referring to something that Rogue Statement said a little bit earlier, so I'm going to scroll up a little bit. Man, a lot of great comments. Dustin. Dustin Helms got a statement in there that I won't say it, but if you get a chance, go into the Rumble chat right now and scroll up a little bit, because Dustin's got a great one. And oh man, KWD has it stated in a slightly different way. He says DC Drano is not lacking in self-confidence. That's for darn sure. And you know, it's funny. You're hitting on something, KWD, that's exactly what I was thinking about earlier today. I was in the kitchen and I was having DC Drano make my lunch, because, I'm so highfalutin myself. So while I was standing on his back, I said, hey, DC. Or I was listening to Chocolate City by Parliament, and I was looking down on him, and I said, can you hear me, CC? Oh, yeah, Chocolate City and all her vanilla suburbs. So I was just thinking exactly that. I was like, can you imagine? And this seems to be, I don't know if you get that feeling, but this is one of the things that either I try to avoid it, or I'm just not that kind of person, or like those are the circles. I don't know, maybe it's a combination of a lot of those things, but a lot of times people who get into these positions, either they're already those kinds of characters, or they get into these positions and they start, what do they say? They start to act like their poop doesn't stink, or whatever the expression is. Like they just get really egotistical and they think they're really great and they can never make a mistake. And a lot of them, I think they do it also thinking that if they do make a mistake, they can, it's still providing them publicity. And I think they have a really low estimation of some of the people in their audience, not all of them, but some of them. And they'll think, well, that will gin them up and they're still behind me and they'll back me and I'll get the support in the argument anyway. And it's just such a, it's a really down, dirty dog approach to human interaction. Just no respect. I mean, in a way, it's a real dig on the golden rule. Treat others as you would want them to treat you, and do not treat others as you would not want them to treat you. But that's DC Drano. And I can't wait. I'm going to have like a whole month where DC Drano is going to fill in on the show. I hope you look forward to it. It's going to be fun. Or maybe not. Okay, now let's get into one other quick one on the news notes. NBC talking about media. Well, NBC is feeling it. Now, I was just complimenting NBC and their reporter in Chicago, who is doing a really good job, really, really cool. Well, yeah, they're slashing 7% of their staff, including woke programs, ahead of a network split. So there you go. Now, I know one of my advertisers is Pearly Dewdrops Shampoo. You can handle those network splits and have the finest head of hair in the land of network news affiliations. But NBC News is now, they have already started slashing employees. I know you're saying, where are the cops? Isn't that like a horror movie? What is it, Freddy Krueger slashing them up? Halloween, Jason? Yeah, well, they've taken in 7% of the network staff. around 150 staffers. That's only 7%. Wow. Can you imagine what the budget for that? What? No wonder they're not doing well. Seriously? I mean, look, you watch Redacted, Judge Napolitano. You watch 21 Wire. You watch David Knight, Travis. You watch Tony Arterburn. You watch some of these shows. You have a collection in one show. You got better news coverage than many major networks. Sometimes the networks will do good work, and then, maybe a couple segments like, okay, that was breaking, that was good, they did good coverage there. And then the rest of it you don't need. It's like, wow. It's just amazing. It's stunning. The monopolies are falling. And again, NBC got its position because it was granted its position by the federal government when they created the Federal Communications Commission. The Federal Radio Commission started in the 1920s, and up until the 1940s, they didn't allow television on the air. Then they allowed television. They handed out the licenses, and they created what were called the red and the blue networks. That was essentially split into three networks: NBC, ABC, and CBS. They were the only ones granted permission by the feds. That First Amendment, it's right there. It says, and when televisual communications comes along, the congressional staffers will decide, and the money will flow back. And of course, they will play favorites with politicians. The politicians will make sure that they play favorites with them, or they won't give them access. So NBC is one of those networks, and now they're falling apart. So there you go. They announced this on Wednesday that the cuts were happening. The cuts included teams dedicated to diversity-focused coverage, including Black, Latino, Asian American, and LGBTQ plus communities, NBC BLK, NBC Latino, NBC Asian America, and NBC Out, according to the Wrap. The cuts are made up of around 2% of the NBC Universal News Group, which is now hiring for 140 positions across the group. So I don't understand. It's just, they're going to be doing really well. So anyway, NBC, they're prioritizing their corporate profits because they're really, really hurting. So just enjoy it while it lasts. Comcast announced that networks MSNBC, USA Network, CNBC, Oxygen E, Sci-Fi, and, who doesn't love it, the Golf Channel, will soon be under the umbrella of their new parent company, Versant, otherwise known as BlackRock. Not just kidding. So that's the scoop, the hottest scoop, as we check out the news, and we're going to head on over into some other major stories. Again, everybody, thanks for being here. As the weekend comes along, I want to let you know that here at NBC News Eastern Russia, we're not going to be here tomorrow night. It's not that I've been fired. It's not that the NBC budget can't handle what I would ask for. It's that I'm going to be away doing something criminal with my brother. So just want to let you know that. We're going to be supporting the Russian propaganda by spray painting Russian Cyrillic all over the walls of Boston buildings. It's going to be great. It'll be cool. We'll have a great time. And if I get caught, my brother's a lawyer, so everything's fine. They'll check our immigration status. All right, so let's get started with everybody. We're going to be talking a little bit about the other big breaking story. And for that, we're going to go warfare land. We're going to go Gangnam style. It's time for us to talk war with our buddies in land. It's time for us to talk Edwin Starr warfare coverage, and Ukraine is first up. Here we go.
What is it good for? Absolutely nothing. Yeah. What is it good for? Absolutely nothing. Say it again, y'all. Look out. What is it good for? Absolutely nothing. Listen to me. I despise. 'Cause it means destruction of innocent lives. War means tears to thousands of mothers die when their sons go to fight and lose their lives. I said war. Good God, y'all. What is it good for?
Absolutely nothing. Say it again. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was a time that was really cool, because if you were just in a straight up rock, the soul songs had such oomph that they were awesome. So it was all just great to listen to. Like the Blues Brothers put that album out, and Paul Schaefer put the band together. They had Duck Dunn and Steve Cropper and those guys on there, and they did that cover of "Give Me Some Lovin'" that Steve Winwood wrote, and it was awesome. Like it all sort of all these different facets of music that you could get into. It was great. It was a really good time. Early 70s, and then when punk came around, late 70s and the early 80s with new wave, that was a really cool time. The last really neat development in music, I remember I asked Rich Gilbert about that. He said it was probably hard rap. But after I did that interview with Rich Gilbert of the Zulus and Human Sexual Response, I think maybe the next one might be the resurgence of swing band with Big Bad Voodoo Daddy and stuff like that, or the sample stuff that the Prodigy did. The Prodigy, Chemical Brothers, Dust Brothers, stuff like that. So that's the Propeller Heads, that sort of stuff. Very, very cool. And of course, there have been little movements in there, with like Oasis bringing about their stuff and everything. But very interesting stuff. That was a great era for music. Really good era. The 70s, early 80s, really good stuff. And it's not just because I was a kid. I've spoken with people about it, and they kind of agree. Of course, they were all kids at that time, too. No, I'm just kidding. Sorry, I'm DC Drano. Anything I say has got to be right. All right, let's talk about Putin and Vladimir Putin. And, of course, he is Putin the buttons in Ukraine. Well, not really. Trump and Putin spoke on the phone. They dialed each other up. They had a heart-to-heart, heart-to-heart. And they agreed to have their high-level team. I'll have your people call my people next week, and they're going to have a conversation. It looks like Rubio is going to be the guy involved with this heart-to-heart. But here's his Truth Social nonsense. I've just concluded my telephone conversation with President Vladimir Putin of Russia. I ordered 5 Happy Meals. I don't know why he didn't deliver them. I don't understand. We could have peace in our time if he just bring me the Happy Meals. It was a productive conversation. President Putin congratulated me because I'm awesome, and he must, and the United States because we're awesome, on the great accomplishment of peace in the Middle East. And then he started to laugh and said, just kidding. Oh, sorry, that's not part of it. Something that he said has been dreamed of for centuries. And Putin has been very complimentary of Donald Trump. Yes, if you're downwind from Putin, you can smell the smoke. He's definitely blown some smoke. I actually believed, said Trump, that the success in the Middle East, believe that the success will help our negotiations. He was very appreciative and said that this will continue. We also spent a great deal of time talking about trade between Russia and the United States when the war with Ukraine is over. At the conclusion of the call, we agreed that there will be a meeting of our high-level advisors next week. The United States' initial meetings will be led by Secretary of State Marco Rubio, together with various other people to be designated. A meeting location is to be determined. President Putin and I will then meet in an agreed-upon location, Budapest, Hungary, to see if we can bring this inglorious war between Russia and Ukraine to an end. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm not sure whether if, let's say Marco Rubio is going to fly someplace, whether they can get above the trade barriers, because they're going higher and higher. He might have to talk to Elon Musk about that. I'm not sure. But that's the story. I'll give you a little bit more morning glory in the vein of those fine folks from Manchester. Anything that Marco Rubio is involved with, it's usually a bad sign. But here's a little bit more. Trump announces plan to meet Putin in Budapest. U.S. President Donald Trump plans for a summit in Budapest, Hungary. The meeting will take place at a date to be determined after high-level advisors from the two countries meet next week, he said on Truth Social, which we just read to you. I think that's the first time I've ever actually had a Truth Social tab open on my computer because I clicked on this one to go over to it. Trump expressed hope that by meeting Putin, the two leaders will be able to bring the Ukraine conflict to a close. So that's about where that stands. But there's a lot of other complicating information in there, of course, because while he's doing that, Vladimir Putin has basically said it doesn't matter. Somebody asked Putin the other day, hey, those Alaska talks, have they led to anything where they're basically fruitless? He's like, yeah, they were fruitless. And then behind the scenes, people like Lavrov were like, yeah, we knew it was going to be that way. That's essentially what's going on. So who knows if they're going to be doing the same thing now? Not really sure. Some people who are on the real conspiratorial side are like, Putin is part of the grand game. That's what's going on. Yeah. And no, I don't think so. So while we're at that, of course, Ukraine is demanding more. They want more. It's like the song, I Want More from Love Spit Love. Make it rain. Ukraine wants up to 20 billion more in arms from NATO backers next year. And as we said, and as they said on the Ron Paul Liberty Report today, you got it, my friends. Everybody knows, if they've been watching this, and Daniel McAdams has said it a number of times, just like I've said it here on Liberty Conspiracy, that it's a backdoor way to give money to the arms. And we said it before it was even solid before. And we said it last year. This is what Trump is planning. He wants to set it up that Ukraine will continue to be buying weapons somehow from the U.S. arms manufacturers. It's going to be a way to give money to his corporate friends. Well, Tyler Durden writes, European countries in NATO on Wednesday signaled their readiness to go all in on President Trump's plan to transfer U.S. weapons to Ukraine using allied funds. The Biden administration had basically donated most arms, but Trump's plan is to sell them, making the U.S. role a little more indirect. Not quite, because as we noted, and as the great Daniel McAdams noted, by the way, he's into punk rock. I don't think a lot of people know that. Like, I think he played in punk bands. Like, he had a mohawk. He is not a fool around guy, right? If you were in the mosh pit next to Daniel McAdams when he was like 18, you would probably have broken ribs the way I had broken ribs last time I was at the damn show. So, yeah, because the U.S. Basically provides 68 to 70% of the NATO military funding. So it's just a shell game, you know. It's like, you know, watching a Penn and Teller magic act. So, the Biden administration had basically donated most arms, but Trump's plan is to sell them, making the U.S. role a little more indirect, as we know. This could effectively put the most hawkish European leaders in the driver's seat related to the still ratcheting proxy war. And again, the area of disagreement I have with some people like Scott Ritter and others are saying they don't have the money to do this. Where are they going to get the money to do it? It's very obvious where they're going to get the money to do it, where they've always gotten the money, because they're still bankrupt, from the IMF, from the ECB, from the European Central Bank. That's where they're going to do it. They'll print up the money, and that's the way it's going to work. Thanks to funding from allies, we are providing Ukraine with critical U.S. equipment, NATO chief Mark Rutte proclaimed as alliance defense ministers met in Brussels. And today, we heard from ally after ally about new contributions. We're also going to contribute all the farmland that we seized from people in the Netherlands, and all of the cow manure that we wouldn't allow them to spread on their farms and help them go bankrupt. Denmark, Norway, Sweden, Canada, Germany, and the Netherlands have pledged $2 billion in 4 separate PURL packages, but it's not enough. Yes, Zelensky wants allies to rain money on his government, says Tyler, and the military. They've issued their wish list or shopping list, at the top of which are, you got it, my friends, U.S. Tomahawks. I think Santa thinks he's been a very good boy this year for, of course, NATO, though it remains anything but certain whether Trump will authorize such a brazen escalation against Moscow. And, of course, some people are saying, look, he can't get them over there to him. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether he can get them there or he can't get them there. It's just a show. It's just a show. It doesn't matter whether it's a show or it's not a show. The very act of doing it is unconstitutional. And you're done. Funding NATO, sending weapons over there, unconstitutional. There's no war. There is no war. That's all. And, of course, this guy, Richard, has this. This is good. Listen to this U.S. warhawk blabber. Has he the slightest clue what Russia's security actually means? Moscow asked for one thing: stop NATO expansion. The West laughed at that, thinking Russia was weak. They bulldozed ahead, and now they pay the price. Over 21% of Ukraine is already Russian. We're going to show you the rest, of course. I'm clicking on it if you're listening in the audio. And play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Here we go.
That's all that matters, hard power. It's the only thing belligerents actually respect. Your continued investment and leadership are vital to helping Ukraine defend itself and to bring an end to this conflict. Peace through strength. Now, Europe's political leaders have also endorsed military planning for the coalition of the willing by establishing an operational headquarters and committing personnel to that multinational force. Should a peace arrangement be reached, European leaders are sending a clear message to Russia. Now is the time to end this tragic war, stop the needless bloodshed, and come to the peace table.
Hey, remember when we were all in that gang and we encroached on that town out in the desert in Arizona? Remember that? That was fun, wasn't it? And then when we got there, we said, hey, you know what? We won't go any further into these other towns. And then over the course of 20 years, we did, right? And then remember when inside a town nearby that, one of the closest towns to it that used to actually be part of that town, had family members who had been part of that original town. This other town, Town A. In Town A, we overthrew the government in Town A. Yeah, remember that? And you remember the title of our gang? We called ourselves NATO, the coalition of the EU willing. It was a nice little hodgepodge. Remember that? Those were fun days, weren't they? Because, you know, the only thing that naked aggression understands is strength. So just tell that to the Venezuelans. And by the way, thank you guys for your comments. I got some comments about the question that I asked about if there were a boat out on Lake Erie or Lake Michigan that the Trump administration argued was like funneling drugs from Canada. Do you think MAGA people would be comfortable with them, you know, blasting the boat out of the water? Every single person who responded to me that I saw, there might have been some people I missed, and I apologize if I missed you, but they're like, yeah, I think they would go for it. And again, you know, who knows? I haven't done a poll of MAGA, but just the fact that many people in the audience, and there must have been 5 or 6 people who responded to me, that many people who were watching, and, you know, we don't have like a gigantic audience yet, because, you know, the NBC people are going to be coming over, and we're going to go on NBC sometime soon. We're going to be part of their new staff, I'm sure. But the fact that the audience members think that's a real indictment of the mentality of the MAGA people, which is, I think, derived from observing them, not just thinking, oh, MAGA people, you know, having some prejudicial view of them, but looking at their behavior, I think, is what you guys have been doing. And that's what I've been doing, you know. I mean, we were in line with many of the MAGA people on many of the free speech issues. Now we're totally polar opposites. We were in line with them when we talked about freedom of the press and things like the Espionage Act and Obama, right? Or even in many cases, drone strikes against innocent people, right? And they're all innocent because none of them have been brought in. And it's a total black and white now. It's just crazy. Really, really bad. So that's a big deal. And there is a little bit more coming to us about Ukraine that I want to give to you. Because the Russian Foreign Ministry is noting that it's not possible that Ukraine could have carried out numerous of its attacks on Russian civilians without Western aid and planning. So let me show you this one. And there are going to be a couple video segments to sort of wrap this up as we head out of this segment, but including Ron Paul and Daniel McAdams and a little bit from RT. But I want to give you this. Ukrainian terrorism impossible without Western support. This coming from the Kremlin. The complexity of Kiev's attacks on Russia indicate that they could not have acted alone, said Dmitry Peskov. Now, Dmitry Peskov is the Kremlin spokesperson, and he said that to Izvestia, as you can see there in the first paragraph. At the Russian Energy Week REW Forum in Moscow, Peskov was asked to comment on Federal Security Service FSB Director Alexander Bortnikov's comments that claims that British operatives were involved in Ukrainian strikes on Caspian Pipeline Consortium assets. And, of course, the complexity of the Kiev regime's acts of terrorism against critical energy infrastructure indicates that the Ukrainians themselves could not have carried them out, just like the Siberian attack, just like the attack on the Crimean Bridge, just like other attacks on pipelines. This could not have been done without the participation of Western intelligence agencies. In this case, it was the British. That is obvious, he added. At a meeting of security chiefs in Uzbekistan on Thursday, Bortnikov alleged that operatives from the UK's Special Forces and MI6 spy agency helped Kiev plan drone strikes against energy objects belonging to the CPC, that's the Caspian Pipeline Consortium, earlier this year. The consortium, whose shareholders actually include U.S. energy giants like Chevron and ExxonMobil, exports Kazakh crude via Russia. He also warned that British and Ukrainian forces are planning to sabotage the Turk Stream pipeline. We talked about that before, which exports natural gas from Russia to Turkey and several southern European nations. And of course, the government of Turkey is having none of that. The FSB chief also accused British commandos and intelligence officers of being intimately involved in planning Ukrainian cross-border raids and strikes. And remember, if they send those Tomahawks, the Ukrainians can't control the Tomahawks. They're going to have to be run by Westerners. So let's just make sure we get that down, right? Now, I'm going to include a little bit more about the warfare against Venezuela in this package. And I want to talk about that latest strike because new information has come about has come around about that, and it has to do with Trinidad and Tobago, of all things. So I want to tell you, these innocent people are just being wiped out by the American government, by the U.S. government, okay? This is just a really dark time right now. It's no different than under Biden and no different than under Obama at all. It's just as bleak and just as deadly. And of course, they facilitated genocide just as much, if not more, under Trump as they did under Biden in Gaza. And the Israelis, by the way, are still hitting people in Lebanon. You'll see this report coming up in a little bit when that is going to be a separate section. But let's talk about Venezuela real quick, because the Trump administration just flew B-52s near Venezuela. Trump planning to topple Maduro. We heard about that plan last night. Authorizes CIA operations in Venezuela as U.S. B-52s, not the ones playing with Devo on tour, kept a close eye. That's the way they depict this at the Economic Times. They kept a close eye. And Venezuelan F-16s, which they purchased from the U.S., scrambled. They really want Maduro out of there. The Trump administration has given the Central Intelligence Agency the green light. We discussed that last night. But here's more. According to TWZ, 3 U.S. B-52 bombers. Is there a war? Did you hear any echoes of that? Hello? As the monkey said in the movie Head, give me a W, give me an A, give me an R. What does it spell? War. They had people cheerleading it. It's a great movie. You got to see Head. It's excellent. One of the best movies ever made. Okay, according to TWD, in my opinion, according to John Bolton, you can believe him, 3 U.S. B-52 bombers, they were dropping rock lobsters, and they were also observed flying over the Caribbean en route to Venezuela. Because where else do you want to send your B-52s? You got to do something with them, according to Flight Radar 24. It was seen as a power stunt occurring alongside an extensive U.S. troop buildup in the Caribbean. Now, Dave DeCamp at Antiwar was discussing how most of these signals, the CIA thing, says, I think that was a leak. He said, I think they put that information out there purposely to freak out Maduro, to try to get him to step aside. They're trying to scare him to leave, to have a peaceful transition. I don't think Maduro's that kind of guy. And you know, I just don't think, I think he'll go down. I think he would die first. And I'm not like praising him in any way whatsoever. I think his economic policies have been slightly screwed up, but he entered a pretty bad situation in the first place, a colonial empire that the United States and the British forces had messed with since the turn of the last century, with energy companies going in there, seizing land, just like Iran. It's basically Iran in South America is what you get with Venezuela. And numerous attempts to topple people, you know, CIA spreading money all over the place, just ridiculous. All these ridiculous claims of the drugs coming in from Venezuela when they know that they're not coming in from Venezuela. They're coming in from Mexico and from the Pacific. And of course, there's nothing in the Constitution for interdiction in any way whatsoever. So Trump linked the escalations to 2 recurring complaints. Yeah. Hey, wait, I got a new complaint. And said that the drugs and criminal organizations are flowing from Venezuela into the United States with Trende Triskaidekaphobia. We are certainly looking at land now because we're thinking about a land invasion because we've got the sea very well under control. Well, okay. If you say so, Donald, I don't think. Hey, everybody, it's Black and White outside the Studio G, here to act as a thematic change device once more and to remind you to spread the word about the show and support freedom. Really appreciate our growth over the past year, and I want to thank you for having such impeccable taste. Okay, well, after you have a few tech problems with your own computer, I guess when it turns out that it's the internet provider and you can see you're not getting anything from Comcast, then it doesn't feel so bad having to wait around because there's nothing you can do. So hopefully you're still there and we get to continue with the presentation of information and exchange of ideas as hopefully Comcast won't be banging around on any more cables out there somewhere. Yes, had to wait a while, but we're back. So thanks for your patience and thanks for commiseration. If you understand, sometimes it's beyond your control. You just got to wait a little bit and everything is back. Thank goodness. And I appreciate the text from numerous good people who said, yeah, you're not on. And I was able to text a couple folks and let them know what was going on. So thanks if you're still there, my friends, fellow conspirators. Okay, so we were discussing a couple things that I thought might be worthwhile. And one of these was the attack on Venezuela, but I have no idea where we left off. So I was talking about how Trump flew B-52s, not the band, over Venezuela and clearly wants regime change. I also mentioned that Dave DeCamp thought that this statement about the CIA was a leak and that it was done to try to goad Maduro to leave office. And it doesn't look like Maduro is the kind of person who would do that. So I want to show you the last attack by Donald Trump of extrajudicial murder, where he claimed that they were attacking drug smugglers and you got to take their word for it. And there's no due process. There's no constitutional power for them to be attacking these people in the first place. And even if it were written into the Constitution that, hey, it's perfectly fine to pilfer my neighbor's pocket, to create a police force, to go attack people shipping chemicals over a border, neither would the border protection nor so-called border protection or policing, nor the policing against drugs be ethical because, of course, it's all based on coercion and extortion of people's money to form the police force. So none of it is ethical. The interdiction of the drugs is not ethical. It doesn't matter whether they're good or bad to ingest. It doesn't matter. Forcing somebody to pay for the interdiction is bad. That's it. That's all. Somebody wants to try to stop it themselves, don't want it to come into their house, that's fine. That's totally fine. Otherwise, you're involved in other people engaging in freedom of exchange and free association, and you're the criminal. That's all there is to it. I'm sorry. That's what it is. So let's talk about the latest one, because the revelation is that Donald Trump's attack actually killed people from Trinidad and Tobago. So let me see if I can show you this. I've got it over here on my profile and see if we can call this up. Yeah, that's right. Instead of killing even the people they claimed that they had killed, they actually killed people who weren't even from Venezuela. They were fishermen from Trinidad and Tobago. So here we go. Let me bring it up here for you. Here we are, and it's going to work, even though I actually had to reset like everything. So we'll bring it up on the stage here. Here we go. Check this out. Karen Piper writes, the Pentagon is blowing up Trinidadian fishermen. This is unacceptable. Camilla writes, the United States murdered 2 men from Trinidad and Tobago in yesterday's U.S. strike on a boat in the Caribbean Sea. Of course, they'll just say, well, they were the guilty ones then. It doesn't matter. They could even, let's say they like killed kids on speedboats who were vacationing. They're like 10 years old. It's okay. They were smuggling drugs. They were 5-year-olds in a kiddie pool. No. They were smuggling drugs. Everything is acceptable. It doesn't matter. They'll continue to winnow down any ethical barrier till there's nothing left. They murdered 2 men from Trinidad and Tobago in yesterday's U.S. strike on a boat in the Caribbean Sea during the fake anti-drug military operations against Venezuela. CNC3 TV says.
Two men believed to be Trinbagonians were killed in the latest U.S. drone strike of Venezuelan waters. And now a Las Cuevas family is demanding answers.
They say Chad Joseph wasn't a trafficker, just a young man trying to come home. Jensen Levent went to the fishing village to speak with the family.
Like most of the men gathered here at the Las Cuevas fishing depot, Chad Joseph was a fisherman. Both his relatives and residents are denying strenuously that he was involved in drug trafficking. They say his killing was unjust.
When Prime Minister Kamala Persad-Bissessar said the United States should kill alleged drug dealers violently, no citizen was listed among the dead. On the U.S.'s fifth airstrike, Trinidadians Chad Joseph and another man identified only as Samaru were among 6 people killed on Tuesday, taking the number of alleged narco traffickers killed by the U.S. since September 2nd to 27. Joseph's grandfather, Cornell Clement, who denied his grandson was a drug trafficker, says he has no choice but to trust in God. Now he questions the U.S.'s method of dealing with the situation.
I watch at it as wickedness. Because why we killing people children for? They're not named that yet. It's supposed to be that way.
You say he was a drug trafficker, but he was...
No. The boy is no drug trafficker. It make them run and come back.
Joseph's grandmother,
You're saying they were going to make their run and come back. They're fishermen. They're not drug dealers.
Mother Christine, says her grandson was in Venezuela for the past 3 months and wanted desperately to return home, but his previous attempts failed.
Before time he was coming, they shoot up the boat. He ended up surviving on some little beach, and some people take time because I talked to him and I talked to one of the ladies too. And the second time I hear he come in, I get his mother 2 days ago I asked her. She told me he must come in and something with the boat again.
So I'll stop there. Of course, their accents are difficult to understand, but I can't imagine what it would be like to be a family member and find out that some government stacked up with political elitists just killed my son. And now you've got your grandkids and maybe his wife, and that's all that's left all together now, trying to survive without him. Just amazing. Wow. So sad. That's really, really angering. And I believe they were fishermen. So I'll just say that. Now, with the Venezuela story, with that unfortunate break in things with the internet connection there, thanks to Comcast. Hi, Comcast. With the Venezuela story, they could say they're anything. They could say that they're smuggling nuclear arms. It doesn't matter. They'll say anything, any excuse that they want, right? It makes no difference whatsoever. They'll just claim that they have some power to stop them. They're terrorists. We'll describe them as terrorists. Anything we want to say, that as long as it sounds scary, it gives us some excuse to go after people. That's evidently the way that they're going to operate, right? Well, I want to get into a little bit about the way that they're treating these other countries and some of the additional lies that they supply. So let's just do a quick review of a couple of the things that we discussed a while ago as we got into some of the statements about Venezuela. Remember, Tim Kaine, we've gone through this a couple nights and just reviewed it, how he said, yeah, they might have killed innocent people. They were all technically innocent, every one of them, because they never had a chance to be shown to have been accused of a crime. No evidence was ever shown against them. They're all innocent people. Donald Trump has slaughtered that many innocent people. And we have Trump killing again. This one, you got it. That's off the coast of Grenada. Let's be clear, Grenada is being invited to be as a partner in the invasion of a sovereign territory. That's when they approached the government of Grenada to say, hey, can we have a radar station there? And of course, they would put troops there as well. And the gaslighting of Vance and Trump. So let's talk about J.D. Vance discussing, you got it, how, well, you're not listening to me, George. Don't forget this exchange.
I don't know what tape you're referring to, George. I saw media reports that Tom Homan accepted a bribe. There's no evidence of that. And here's, George, why fewer and fewer people watch your program and why you're losing credibility.
So he doesn't know anything about it, but he knows that Tom Homan didn't do anything at all, right? So we remember that one. And Stephanopoulos rightly booted him from the show, essentially. That was excellent, and he did a great job. And then we have the Israeli propaganda Loomer style. Let's not forget that. We're going to go into that in a little while. We'll discuss that in the future. But I want to get into the tariff terrorism, all right? Now, the tariffs are utterly ridiculous, and we know that Trump is pledging money to go to Argentina because evidently he wants Argentina in his pocket. We'll talk about that a little bit more in just a moment, as he wants Milei perhaps to vote in the UN to support Israel, wants perhaps U.S. corporations to get a real good foothold in there, that sort of thing. They've got 20 million. We'll discuss that again in just a little while. But let's talk about Russia and the Ukrainian situation. As Donald Trump discussed those negotiations, which I'd hoped to bring in a little bit earlier, I want to go into the tariffs and Trump's threats about tariffs and how they're going after India. So we're going to give you this information, of course, about the Indian situation, Russian energy and the Russian economy being unshaken, and Donald Trump threatening India. So let's go into it. From RT coverage a little bit earlier today. Yep. As we mentioned here, like Loomer avoided truth regarding the hostages yesterday, Trump lies regarding India, regarding Russian fuel purchases. And of course, the ripples carry through other nations as the trade war escalates because of Trump. So here is RT's excellent coverage of this.
And while Vladimir Putin has highlighted Russia has gone global with new partners for its energy products, India's External Affairs Ministry says it's, quote, not aware if Donald Trump had a phone call with Narendra Modi yesterday. It comes after Trump claimed that New Delhi all of a sudden bowed to American pressure to stop buying Russian energy.
On the question of whether there was a conversation or a telephone call between Prime Minister Modi and President Trump, I am not aware of any conversation yesterday between the two leaders.
We have the Indian Foreign Ministry saying, well, we're not aware of any conversations between the Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, having a conversation with Donald Trump. This comes as the U.S. President has essentially said that he heard from Prime Minister Modi and that Modi had promised him, again, all of this, according to Trump, that India will just stop buying Russian energy resources. But again, the Indian Foreign Ministry had this statement to basically they published the following statement in response to Trump's words.
India is a significant importer of oil and gas. It has been our consistent priority to safeguard the interests of the Indian consumer in a volatile energy scenario. Our import policies are guided entirely by this objective. Ensuring stable energy prices and secured supplies have been the twin goals of our energy policy. This includes broad-basing our energy sourcing and diversifying as appropriate to meet market conditions. Where the U.S. is concerned, we have for many years sought to expand our energy procurement. This has steadily progressed in the last decade. The current administration has shown interest in deepening energy cooperation with India. Discussions are ongoing.
Given all of this, really, Donald Trump's words, they sound ever so increasingly perplexing because what he's been saying, for him, India apparently is already a done deal. For him, India has already complied with something that he and his administration has been pursuing for such a long time, and that is to have importers of Russia's crude, of Russia's gas, to stop doing so. Apart from Hungary and Slovakia, India and China are some of the biggest importers of Russian oil, of Russia's energy resources. Now he's saying, well, that India has complied, even though India has shown no such indication. And in the past, really what you've heard coming out of Delhi right now falls very much in line what they had to say about this. They have been defending their energy sovereignty tooth and nail. And really, India doesn't take kindly to, former colonizers like the UK and their allies like the US telling them what to do and essentially just, dishing out commands. But for Trump, again, that seems like a done deal. And he's saying, well, now China should follow suit.
I was not happy that India was buying oil. And he assured me today that they will not be buying oil from Russia.
Bogus.
That's a big stop. Now I got to get China to do the same thing.
But again, he's already has had some tough luck with India, even though he had already slapped additional tariffs on some Indian goods. I mean, back in August, he slapped an additional 25%, bringing the total penalty figure to 50% when it comes to India. He has been threatening as much as 500% when it comes to China. And Beijing's response to that has been really, they aren't having it. They won't be blackmailed into obedience.
These U.S. actions constitute a typical example of unilateral intimidation and economic coercion, seriously undermine international trade and economic rules, and threaten the security and stability of global production and supply chains.
And as for Russia, Moscow is unfazed too by whatever's been going on. Moscow is unfazed by threats. And really, you've heard Vladimir Putin already, as I've mentioned, just laying it all out there in public, making it public knowledge that Russia is feeling confident, and that those European countries that have declined, that have pulled out of contracts with Moscow, that they have shot themselves in the foot. They have shot the collective EU in the foot as well, and that only opened new doors for Russia turning to other customers who have proven to be more reliable, who have proven to be just better in terms of doing business with. So according to Moscow, it is business as usual with Hungary, with Slovakia, with China, and with India.
No one can tell them what to do, and they will choose their own path. It is economically viable, and I am confident that our partners will continue to work with us, interact, and develop energy cooperation.
So again, it is unclear how Donald Trump will respond to this whole slew of, new statements and revelations by India, by Delhi, in this case, by China too, because they aren't having it, as I said. And Donald Trump, he's not the man who likes when he's being argued with. He's not the type of person who will treat such, for him, it looks like disobedience. And when it's either his way or no way at all. And now he does not look good. It is not a good.
So I want to pause it. That shot we just saw is, I think, emblematic of the way that the Trump administration looks at truth and facts. That chart about how much those governments were making off of the Americans and what their tariffs were like and so on was utterly fictitious. And Howard Lutnick over there knew it, and so did Donald Trump. They all know that it was made up out of nothing. And the statement that Donald Trump said about India is also not backed by any concrete facts. The Indians haven't changed their policies. They've got lots of contracts with Russia, and they'd be insane not to resell the Russian energy, the fuel, the natural gas, the oil, because the Europeans are buying it. And they're not going to stop buying it. They don't have alternatives. The Germans don't have all of their coal running yet. Remember, they were going to shut down their coal mines and a lot of coal energy plants a couple of years ago. They started to shut them down, and they said, oh, wait a minute. Now we're in a real problem because this green energy idea that we had is stupid. Windmills don't work. Solar is really crappy. And now the Russian energy isn't coming to us because they just blew up a pipeline thanks to us and the Ukrainians. The Russian pipeline is now destroyed. The Russians didn't blow it up. So that's, I think, an example of the way Donald Trump and his team treat people. But there's more than that. I want to discuss some of the things that are coming down the pike for everybody, and also talk about the way Donald Trump is behaving towards all of the BRICS countries. He's got a 50% tariff against India, all Indian goods. He's put a 100% tariff on the map for China. This isn't going to do anything except harm the economy further. So before we go into China, let me give you some of the information from the news notes. I got a quote from somebody talking about the way he's treating BRICS, the way he's going after China, the way he's going after Brazil, the way he's going after the Russians and the Indians. But I want to talk to you about what he's doing with Canada right now, because Canada and the United States are both putting Stellantis, the Jeep manufacturer, between the horns of two demon dilemmas. because Stellantis just made a deal with the devil of the United States to move a plant from Canada to the United States to try to avoid U.S. tariffs that are going to be slammed against Canadian automobiles and auto parts. But they opened a plant in Canada on the agreement that they get assistance from the Canadian government if they open the plant. So now they're stuck because they made deals with two devils. The Canadian government is telling Jeep maker Stellantis that the government gave them special perks to promise to stay and operate a plant that now Stellantis is planning on moving to the U.S. to avoid getting slammed by Trump's tariffs. Talk about caught between a devil's bargain and a devil's bargain. So here's more of this insane non-economics thinking. And this is why I tried to tell people when I started the show, if you know about economics, you learn economics, all this stuff is very, very fluid. It's easy to understand. The tariffs are taxes. They get gamed by all the people to rent seek and get the government to give them favors at the expense of the consumers. That's all they are. And they're ways for the government to make money. I feel like the Spanish Inquisition, our chief weaponry, and there's this. So that's essentially what they do. They're just ripoffs by thugs. So here it is. Canada threatens Jeep maker over proposed U.S. move. Well, if they don't move, they're going to get stuck with a 30% tariff. The Canadian government has threatened legal action against global car giant Stellantis over its plans to move production of the Jeep Compass to the U.S. Earlier this week, Stellantis revealed a $13 billion, that's 9.68 billion pound, $13 billion investment in America and plans to shift manufacturing of the Compass model from Ontario to its Illinois plant. This originally comes from the BBC, so that's why they translated it. I don't know what that is in Canadian dollars. Canadian dollars is a lot less than the U.S. So $13 billion US dollar investment in America. They plan to shift their manufacturing of the Compass Jeep from Ontario to an Illinois plant. Well, Canada's foreign minister, Melanie Joly, said that the firm had made a legally binding commitment to stay in the city of Brampton in Canada in exchange for financial support. In other words, fascism, hello to fascism, and would exercise all options, including legal, if it did not uphold the agreement. Stellantis has been approached for a comment, but in her letter to Stellantis, Chief Executive Antonio Filosa, this woman, Melanie Joy of the Canadian government, said that the country had given the company billions of dollars, and the move would jeopardize the future of the Brampton factory. In a statement on Wednesday, Mr. Filosa said it was the largest investment in the company's history and would drive our growth, strengthen our manufacturing footprint, and bring more American jobs to the states that we call home. But he didn't mention the Canadian operation. Responding to the announcement, this Canadian bureaucrat said that the car maker and the Canadian government had built a strong and enduring partnership. We were there for the company in 2009 to pull it back from the brink of bankruptcy, and now we expect you to be there for Canadians, she added. Stellantis owns 14 car brands, including Alfa Romeo, Maserati, Jeep, Fiat, Citroën, Chrysler, and Dodge. While the car maker has manufacturing plants in the U.S., it also produces vehicles in the UK, Europe, Canada, Mexico, and South America. In July, the company said tariffs imposed by the Trump administration had cost it $349.2 million for the year so far, after 6.5 months. So they're in a little bit of hot water, but perhaps not as much hot water as you and your bottom line. Who knows? Well, Trump says that there's a trade war going on with China. Really? I wonder how that could have happened. Gee, how could that possibly? Who could have started that? Well, Trump says the U.S. and China are effectively in a trade war. I don't know where that came from. It just came from the sky. Speaking to reporters on Wednesday, when asked if a failure to reach a trade deal with China's Xi Jinping would mean a prolonged trade war, Trump replied, well, you're in one now. We have 100% tariff. If we didn't have tariffs, we'd be exposed as being a nothing. So he thinks that hurting American consumers and raising the cost of what they might want to get from China for factors of their production, doubling that cost is somehow a good thing. No wonder gold and silver are retaining their value and people are buying more of it, so it's actually increasing in its price on both sides. And think about that term, by the way, trade war. Trump says we're in a trade war. How can you take something that involves a positive, voluntary action of the participants who say, I'm going to engage in this activity, it's going to better my life, this is great, and then claim that you are in a trade war? No, you're in an opposition to trade war. That's what you're in. If people were somehow at war through trading, then what you would actually kind of be meaning is they were probably trying to lower prices to beat their consumer. It's a price war. We're dropping prices. We're competing as best as we can for your consumer interest, and it's up to you. And nobody can say, well, the employee's getting shot down there. If you decide that you want a better deal, then you're the one shooting the employee down. You're the final employer. Don't let anybody tell you that the business owner is exploiting their employees if you're buying their product, because you're the final exploiter. You want to get the best bang for your buck. And if you don't, you're not going to have money left over to employ somebody else. And that new job won't be started. That new technology won't be started. Living standards won't be better through the experimentation of the marketplace. Because why? Because government will block you from saving your money and testing something else that you could have bought with that money you saved. That's what they're doing. They're retarding economic growth. That's what government always does. It impedes your choices, takes your money from you for taxes, so for so-called defense, bombs innocent people from Trinidad, sends weapons to Ukraine through the back door, and of course, helps continue genocide. And that term trade war, just ask anybody you know, hey, what do you think of this trade war? Well, yeah, this is Chinese. Hey, have you thought about that term trade war? What does that mean? Well, they're sending products here cheap. Is that bad? Well, it's putting Americans out of work. Are they? Is it really? Is it putting Americans out of work? If it is putting Americans out of work, who's putting them out of work? Oh, that would be the consumer who's freely buying the friggin' stuff to save some stinking money. So then they have money left over. But now you don't want them to have money left over. You want the government to hoover it up. And I say that intentionally. Herbert Hoover it up. It's so simple. It's so simple that, again, 13-year-old kids get this when I teach them. They understand. It's very basic. And they never forget. It's amazing. Peter Schiff is on the rampage. I might sound like I'm on the rampage. Wait till you hear Peter Schiff. This is the Schiff man. Economist blasts Besant. China booms without U.S. trade. As opposed to us. We cannot boom. Economist Peter Schiff, Europac, of course, pushed back against Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent's comments on U.S.-China trade, saying that Beijing's decision to reduce its reliance on American markets will strengthen, not weaken, its economy. On Wednesday, in a post on X, Schiff said Scott Bessent has it backwards, adding that China's decision to trade less with the U.S. and more with the rest of the world will lead to a boom in its economy. Selling to customers who can actually afford to pay is better business than selling to customers who can't, he said, which refers to the growing U.S. federal debt, interest payments to service this debt, alongside the weakening dollar, all of which Schiff has highlighted several times in the past. Now, one of the things that's implicit to what Peter Schiff is saying is, why would you want to get U.S. money unless you immediately get rid of it? Because next year that U.S. money is going to be worth even less. So why bother? Why not go with stronger currencies that are starting to get backed up by gold, or the ruble backed by gold, or something like that? Why not go with that? Which is now, that's what Trump is driving China to do. Because Trump is making it so hard to be productive in the United States, the U.S. dollar is showing even less interest for people outside the United States. There's no reason for them to have U.S. dollars if they're going to be investing in non-productive U.S. corporations when they bring that money back, right? So Trump wants an inflated currency from the Fed. He wants them to reduce the interest rates, which allows for greater expansion of the money supply, which is an inflation of the money supply. That decreases the buying power of the dollar. That means that U.S. people will be able to buy less foreign goods. So that will look good for Donald Trump's so-called trade deficit, because you're not going to be able to buy what you could have bought a year before with the same dollar. Is that good for you? No, it's not good for you. It's bad. It's stupid. It's reduced the ability for you to retain the value of the work you put in to get the money in the first place. They're stealing from you. In addition to that, if they are also going to make it hard for the American corporations and business people to be productive, then again, there's even less incentive for the foreigners to hold on to that U.S. money and invest that U.S. money in anything in the future. They'll just get rid of it and they'll start playing with other currencies. Stephen Schiff is acutely aware of this. He's one of the best in the world understanding this stuff. He gets it. He understands. You got people from the Mises Institute, people from FEE, people from the Independent Institute, economics professors, and a few maybe economics teachers from some high schools who probably understand this. But you're not going to get people from the Trump administration to mention what is real. Franco is the man to go to on Wednesday nights to watch Angry Tiger because he gets it. Ron Paul gets it. Daniel McAdams gets it. So, yeah, the weakening dollar, of course, means that there's going to be less investment. Schiff also said the way you actually pay for imports is exports. We don't make enough stuff the Chinese need. And, of course, they don't want our money. So they're not going to take the exports of our money anymore because it's worthless. So why not do business with other people? Good job, Peter Schiff. And we've got this. East Coast shuts down, as a reminder, shuts down 2 more packaging plants as $100 billion supply chain collapse accelerates. So what does that mean? That means, everybody, that as we mentioned earlier, this is a reiteration of these 2 plants. The Packaging Corporation of America, PCA's decision, comes as the $100 billion U.S. packaging sector faces mounting pressures with ripple effects expected for workers, suppliers, and customers. So they're not getting as many people buying foreign goods that need to be shipped over here. Cardboard is going up and the demand for it is going to go down. So they don't need the employees because people aren't shipping as much. That's a very bad sign. We mentioned that last week. But Trump doesn't get it. In the meantime, what's the Trump answer? Finishing this off, here it is. From India all the way to Scott Bessent's weird brain, Bessent says the government, and Tiger talked about this last night. So now, if you're in an economics class, what does this terminology mean to you? You let me know. Bessent says government will set price floors across a range of industries. If anybody, and I don't know how many people are still watching. Thanks for being there, you guys. I appreciate that. This is cool that we're actually still rolling. This is cool. Let me know what you think that means. That Bessent says government will set price floors across a range of industries. And you let me know if that reminds you of any alphabet spaghetti soup policies from, 100 years ago or so. About 90 years ago. What that means, price floors across a range of industries. I'll start reading the article. People can put their comments in there. I want to give you a chance to comment. Here we go. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said the United States plans to set price floors across sectors such as rare earths and suggesting a significant escalation in the administration's market interventions. Meaning what? Of course. You got it. Thanks, Marty. He's still with you, bro G. You got it. Thanks, man. That's awesome. Really great. Yeah, I was really psyched to get the show out tonight too, and we were flying. It sort of takes the wind out of your sails, but you come back and you just keep positive. So I'm liking it. It's good. Well, of course, it means subsidies. They're going to subsidize any of the companies that are close to them that need help. Those are the price floors. They're not going to allow the government is going to become a competitor with you. That's what it's going to do. Just like, and they do it in many different ways. The very first article I got published with a professional magazine was an article called Plum Deal with the Freeman. And it was about how the George W. Bush administration was going to pay plum growers with plum trees to destroy the trees because there was a glut of plums. And they wanted to keep the price of plums higher, allow the plum growers to get more per plum. So they were going to pay plum growers to reduce the stock of trees that they had, to reduce the supply of plums. They said, oh, there's too many plums. Well, in a market, strangely, people adjust to that. And if there are too many plums because people don't want them or whatever it might be, well, people switch out of doing those things. And the land gets utilized for something else because plums just aren't that popular anymore, right? But in a fascist economy, like W. Bush, like Obama, like Biden, like this guy, Trump, like Clinton, like so many of them, they will subsidize something that they think is important and combine government with business, which is fascism. The fascists are together. We're gripping them together. So they were going to pay plum growers to destroy the trees. And my mom was in the kitchen when I mentioned it to her, and I said, Mom, they're going to pay plum growers. She goes, so does that mean that if I've got a stretch of land without any plum trees on it, I can plant a plum tree and then get paid to not have it grow? I was like, I don't know. That's logical. You could put in the threat. I'm going to grow plums, right? Who knows how long they're forward timing this, right? So that's the mindset. And it's exactly the mindset of things like the Works Progress Association, the Agricultural Adjustment Act, that one specifically, during the Roosevelt, the FDR administration. They paid people to kill pigs and put them in the ground rather than use them for food. And I've shown in my documentary for MRC TV on collectivism, I said, you know, many of the central planning ideas that they had under Stalin and under Mao were utilized in various forms under FDR with the AAA. They literally, I had video footage, you can find it on YouTube. And I sent it down to the team in Washington. I said, can you put this in the video of these guys who were working in the cotton fields, right? They're probably second generation from guys who have been freed slaves. They're still down in the South working the cotton fields. So like, yeah, it broke my heart. They had us go burn the cotton plants because there was such a danger. Oh my gosh, we might actually have more cotton. Why? Because they wanted the cotton to become less available. So they paid the cotton guys and the farmers, the guys in the fields, they didn't know that the farmers were getting paid to make them destroy the fields. They didn't know they were getting subsidized for that. So they take your money and they make you pay for even further economic harm. And this is what Besant wants. This is what Besant wants. This is what this guy is actually shooting for. The Trumpets, this is the deal. They want a price floor across sectors such as rare earths, suggesting a significant escalation in the administration's market interventions aimed, not a price ceiling. They're not putting price caps on stuff, which would cause a dearth of something. They're saying, we want to put a price floor on something. So what's that going to do? They're going to subsidize all these things. So what's that going to do? That's going to get people to now enter a market when they normally wouldn't have entered the market because it's now got an artificial demand, right? So they're going to be paying people to do something. They're going to be paying people to, if you're in a particular field. And maybe they'll have you withhold that stuff. More people will get brought in and will get subsidized. The Trump administration has sought to bolster its domestic critical mineral and rare earth supply chain to reduce its reliance on China through executive orders, congressional action, and notably deals to take direct stakes in private companies and to pay minimum prices for their products. So if you go into that field, you will be promised to be paid a certain amount. Besant told CNBC in an interview Wednesday that China has manipulated markets for the past 2 decades. Really? And the United States hasn't? Why don't you leave it up to the consumer? You're doing they keep saying, well, they've got central planning. This is what you are doing, dude. In July, the Department of War entered into a multi-million-dollar deal with MP Materials to help it boost the rare earth supply chain. The deal gives the federal government a 15% stake in MP Materials. It also established a commitment to pay $110 at least per kilogram for neodymium praseodymium, NdPr metal, and oxide, products necessary to produce permanent magnets. The administration's move to take a stake in several companies like MP Materials has been deemed as an unusual approach. Yeah, it's something that, Hitler would have done. It's something that Mussolini did. Besson said, though, that these arrangements are essential, they said, for competing with China. Really? When you said that China owned TikTok, did China own TikTok? No, it didn't. That's right. Who owns TikTok now? That's right. A friend of the Trump administration's. Besson said the administration will not take a stake in non-strategic industries. They must be careful not to overreach. It makes you feel good. Are you feeling comfortable with that? Yeah, me too. Yeah, definitely. So it's ridiculous. They're shutting down businesses all over the place. Let me give you the latest on the economy. Not good. Job losses, big time. Tariffs Trump's blamed amid job losses. This comes from the Raleigh News and Observer. The U.S. lost over 30,000 private sector jobs in September, with total employment falling from 134.558 million, 134 million and a half million, to 134.526 million. So they lost approximately 62,000 jobs. The decline has fueled criticism of President Donald Trump's economic policies. So it's a net loss of 62,000 jobs, everybody. Leisure, hospitality, and professional services saw the largest job losses, with economists linking declines to Trump's tariffs and immigration policies. You're winning. You're winning. Former Biden administration officials Neera Tanden wrote, look, 32,000 jobs lost in September. No, that's 32,000. I thought it's 62,000. Let me go back a second here. 32. Yeah, 32. Sorry about that. Continuing, 32,000 jobs lost in September. Trump is killing jobs, raising prices, and shutting down the government. Well, who cares about that? It would be better. You'd have more jobs if the government would shut down. Experts have cautioned that ADP's reported 30,000 job loss may be misleading due to limited Bureau of Labor Statistics data for comparison. Well, ADP is usually closer than BLS, and BLS always adjusts worse after the report. Well, yeah, they're not getting strong economic growth. Things are really going down. And I'll give you another example. U.S. ports slam tariffs on Chinese cranes as a threat to the supply chain right here. A collective of U.S. ports is clapping back on the U.S. Trade Representative's plans to impose triple-digit tariffs on Chinese-made cranes and other cargo handling equipment in November. So again, this I don't even need to go any further, but I'll just mention they're called the American Association of Port Authorities, AAPA. Okay. Now, in the past, port authorities, and even now, port authorities are very closely connected to governments. As you know, prior to the American Revolution, one of the big problems that the colonials had was that the British had a lot of friends from Parliament who ran the ports all over the British coastline. So they would have favors, and they stipulated that there had to be a certain percentage of British sailors on any ship that came in from the colonies. They had to be carrying a certain percentage of only British materials. If they stopped in a port, like say Bristol, and they were going to go to Portsmouth or go to France, they had to replace any of the American sailors with British. They had to be all British. So they did all that stuff during the colonial days. And that was one of the things that really ticked those people off. And of course, it was all mercantilism. But this is what we're seeing now. We got the Jones Act. It's a similar sort of thing. The Jones Act says that if a foreign ship comes into an American port, it can't go to another American port and drop off the rest of its cargo unless it's flying an American flag. They have to literally take all the stuff off the foreign ship and put it on an American ship. How much does that cost? And now they're going to double the cost of the cranes at the ports. It's crazy. It is. Donald, he's got to be doing this intentionally. He can't not know that this is utter poison to the U.S. economy. He can't not know this stuff. And then he lies about India. It's just crazy. So let me give you this too. He's also bailing out the Argentinian government. Now, I'm going to give you this before we go into the lying aspect. And of course, there was that break in the show. So hopefully there's a bit of fluidity continuing from the first part of the program. And we gave you some valuable stuff about the indictments and things like that coming in, and the attack, the further attack against Venezuela being set up. But I want to go into the Argentina thing, because you know how the U.S. government has this $20 billion bailout, and a lot of the soy farmers and so on, they're very upset because they promised this $20 billion bailout, and still Argentina is going to they have this great deal with China now, which is now buying its soy from Argentina, hasn't bought anything from American growers at all. Some of you in the audience know people who have fields with soy fields in the Midwest. I saw some of your comments. And we know about that. We know how the Chinese are buying coffee now rather than buying things from the United States. They're getting coffee from South America and Brazil, and the United States doesn't like that, so they're throwing more tariffs against Brazil. And Trump always does this, and then he says, I had a great conversation with this guy, but the tariffs still stand. He doesn't bring them down. Sometimes he'll bring them down, and then he puts them back up again. Who can operate in a world where somebody's got that weird mentality? I mean, even reporting on it becomes difficult. You don't know where you are from day to day. It's insane. I got to keep checking. I always do the review every week now. I'm going to review, where do the tariffs stand on these countries versus this country. I'm going to have to do that. I'm just going to have to, I'll put it out there in the news notes for everybody so you know where things stand. And I'll try to report on it at least once a week, which I did on Monday, just to let you know where things stand. Again, 2.5% last year at this time, 25% for most places, sometimes 15% with Europe. So this $20 billion deal is coming because of a couple things. So let me show you in the news notes, because there's another $20 billion that they're promising to Milei as well. So it seems likely, I said, that the U.S. is sending $20 billion with a likely $20 billion more in less than 6 months to Argentina, that this is designed to achieve two major Trump wanted goals. First, it will help bankers like those at Citibank and JP Morgan, because they're heavily invested in Argentinian government interests, similar to the Clinton era bailout of Mexico of $12 to $14 billion right at the start of the Clinton administration, which was very important for Goldman Sachs. And of course, that Goldman Sachs was heavily leveraged in Mexican investments, and one of their former board members, Robert Rubin, was the Treasury Secretary under Clinton. And then right after he did that, he went back to, you got it, Goldman Sachs. So it's going to help a bunch of major corporations in the banking sector in the United States. Citibank and JP Morgan are just a couple. I'll name some other ones. I was looking around, did some research today on it. It's so corrupt. It's ridiculous. But there's another facet of the corruption. It has to do with the UN and Israel. Second, and you know where I'm going, obviously, it keeps Javier Milei on the U.S. leash, which is useful for the U.S. desire to use Argentina as a military leapfrog asset in the attempt to topple the government of Venezuela, to keep Milei supporting Israel at the UN, and to facilitate U.S. crony corporate interests getting plum deals inside that country, which is what they want to do in Venezuela. U.S. banks and funds are and investment funds are major holders of Argentina's U.S. dollar-denominated bonds. So keep that in mind. And they're going to need more bonds, right? Bought at distressed prices, often 30 to 50 cents under the dollar. It's just like Alexander Hamilton. Just like Hamilton. It's the exact same mentality as what brought the Constitution in to push out the Articles of Confederation. The same corrupt mentality. They're doing it with Argentina. It's the same thing. It's the split between the Jeffersonians and the Northeastern banker-connected Hamiltonians. It's still there right now. And Donald Trump's middle name might as well be Hamilton. A default could force a 45% to 55% haircut on bondholders per market pricing from firms like Balance Capital and Morgan Stanley. So they'd be losing massive amounts of money. And then, of course, they'd get bailed out by the federal government directly, but this is just an indirect way to do it, and then leverage some sort of extra forces on top of Malay. The bailout's bond purchase component directly cushions these holdings by boosting liquidity and prices. So this is, if you want to read it and you're one of the paid subscribers, you can check it out. It's like the fourth item. The additional $20 billion private facility explicitly involves many banks interested in investing in Argentine sovereign debt, per, you got it, Mr. Besant. This includes U.S.-based institutions like those tied to hedge funds, example, Elliott Management, and investment banks that underwrote or hold Argentine paper. U.S. exposure extends to trade finance, commodity-linked loans. Argentina is a top soybean exporter competing with U.S. farmers, and derivatives tied to the Argentine peso. Volatility could amplify losses via commodity market spillovers through Argentina, though Argentina poses little systemic risk. So you can see this, it's not just 20 billion, it's 20 billion now and 20 billion in another 6 months. And how are they going to get the extra 20 billion? If they bring in U.S. investment. They're calling that reform. That's what it is. It's just fascism. That's what it is. And they say Malay is a real free marketeer. Right. Mm-hmm. Well, one graft scheme is ending on the climate cult. And we had a climate cult story yesterday. New American is reporting this. They put this out yesterday. The Net Zero Banking Alliance, NZBA, a UN-led initiative that requires participating banks to set net zero emissions targets and realign their activities to comply with the far-left climate agenda. Well, they shut down after 4 years of seeking to weaponize the banking industry. Reuters reports, quote, the alliance, set up in 2021, was the banking industry's main body leading the sector's global effort to cut carbon emissions, which, of course, are not something that they're going to be able to do in the first place, and unless they destroy all economies on the planet, because everything will just shift to wherever it's most productive. And second, it's not a danger. Carbon is not a danger anyway. The temperature is not being influenced dramatically by carbon. The temperature is not going up because of human-caused anything. An overhaul was proposed in August after many big banks left to create, they wanted a framework initiative rather than a membership-based organization. So they just want to voluntarily come up with different policies. Well, as a result of this decision, NZBA is going to cease operations immediately, a spokesperson for the group said. So for 4 years, a bunch of very well-connected people were able to make a lot of money off of nothing, thanks to the government money that was going into the UN from all these different countries. In October 2022, attorneys general from 19 states, led by then Missouri Attorney General Eric Schmidt, well, they launched an investigation into 6 banks: Bank of America, Citigroup, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan Chase, Morgan Stanley, and Wells Fargo for potential consumer protection violations, accusing the banks of course, ceding authority to the UN. They have a fiduciary responsibility not to be wasting money on useless things. Well, Schmidt noted, that's Eric Schmidt, in his statement that these banks are accountable to American laws. We don't let international bodies set the standards for our businesses. Well, the attorneys general also subpoenaed the banks for information related to their participation in the NZBA. Remember, that was October of 2022. So they've been up against the gun for a while here. Agricultural commissioners from 12 states followed suit in another set of suits. In January 2024, in a letter to the 6 banks, they highlighted troubling environmental commitments by your banks that target our farmers, ranchers, they threaten a suit, and agricultural producers, they continued. We are deeply troubled that your banks have given the United Nations Environmental Program, UNEP, authority to review and monitor your bank's climate targets for so-called consistency with UN criteria. Well, the commissioners requested that the banks provide information regarding their commitments, investments, and their effects. Other state officials, including Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, as much as people don't like him, they launched their own investigations. And according to the New American, this pressure paid off. In December of 2024 and January of this year, All 6 banks withdrew from the NZBA. We reported on that when it happened, although several banks claimed they would seek to implement their own net zero goals. This marked the first major shift, and now the entire thing has collapsed. So this is reporting by Peter Rykowski. His picture's down there. I want to give Peter a little plug. Hey, Peter, we're there together. Hey, dude. How you doing, brother? New American, I disagree with them on a number of things like the immigration stuff, but they're doing a good job. They've always done good stuff on the climate. Alex Newman, going out to the UN COP conferences, doing the reporting on that fake whale that they put up on the Caspian Sea. I wonder how much that costs to make, what sort of energy it required to make it and stuff like that. So want to give you one other bit of information before we close off with what's going on next. As Donald Trump has picked his next city in his immigration roulette gunfire. There is a gun rights story out there. So let's talk about it. We're going to hear from some of the good guys in that Boston band called Mission of Burma. Peter Prescott and the boys. Peter Prescott on drums, but also doing a lot of vocals because he rocks. He's awesome. And it is Mission of Burma. That's When I Reach for My Revolver. And you do not need Moby's version ever. Okay, thank you, Burma. Thank you. Okay, so this is a gun rights story that has a bit of a twist, everybody. And it at first blush, part of the reason I'm bringing it up is because there's a little bit of heat that comes as a reminder of something about Pam Bondi. And I bet you know where I'm going to go on this. But over my news notes, you might have already read it if you're one of the paid folks, but I said a debate is swirling as to whether Pam Red Flag Bondi, there you go, you knew where I was going, was behind a request handed to a judge to get the judge to demand a list of names of gun owners. And you might have seen this. Gun Owners of America had this on X. I didn't talk about it the past couple of days, but this is really worth putting out there because Gun Owners of America and a number of others depicted it as Pam Bondi getting this judge to request a gun registry, which essentially is kind of what's going on here. The revelations involve a lawsuit over immoral and unconstitutional age restrictions on gun ownership. And the ruling was in the favor of the citizens. But get this, as the Times now reports, quote, in the case Reese, I don't know if it's Greg Reese, v. ATF, U.S. District Judge Robert Summerhays ordered that plaintiffs, including the Second Amendment Foundation, SAF, and Firearms Policy Coalition, FPC, turn over a verified list of their members from November 2020, a decision reached after the Department of Justice, DOJ, convinced the court of its necessity. This order extends only to those groups' members already identified and verified during the litigation. The DOJ argued, okay? So the DOJ wants a list. The judge responded. People are claiming that Pam Bondi is not at fault here. No, she is. I looked at Snopes on this, and remember, I think it was last night. I said, Snopes has got one right. They actually got something right. Well, this one they got wrong. And I was going to post it just for comparison so people could see it. Maybe I'll bring it up tomorrow night just to show you. But for them, the debate was, did Pam Bondi ask for a gun registry? And they said, no, it was the judge who did it. But what they didn't do was see that it was the Justice Department that had the judge do it. That's the point. That's what everybody is. They didn't even look at what some of the people at GOA were saying. And what the source of the energy for it didn't come from the judge. It came from Trump's attorney general who, yes, when she was in Florida, was in favor of red flag statutes to grab guns. And as Donald Trump says, I like that idea, do the due process later, which is not due process. It's against half the Bill of Rights. They don't even go to trial and they're punishing them. Talk about cruel and unusual punishment. Hello, Eighth Amendment. Have they even read it? I don't even know. It's like, it doesn't take long. You can remember these things. This order extends, they said, only to those groups' members already identified and verified during the litigation, the DOJ argued. Well, in reaction, SAF immediately filed a motion to amend, declaring that SAF has never and will never provide the government a list of our members. Because what it does is, if you're a member of SAF, your name is part of that. Because they want all those members. They're representing their membership. So all of their members' names would be listed. And the government knows this. They know that. They're not fooling anybody. Clearly they know that. They're getting things set up for the next administration to find out who has the guns. Of course, they already know who has a lot of the guns because they got to register the guns. And they know who's selling the guns because the people who are selling the guns who are on the up and up have to be so-called licensed. None of that's constitutional. What they don't know are the people who are intent on committing crimes with it who will never abide by any of the statutes because they're already intent on committing crimes because prohibition doesn't work. There's a demand for the weapon, which the Australians showed. After 10 years, violent crime, after they had their Port Arthur incident and they did their mandatory gun buyback, crime rose by 30% there. And it didn't go back to the previous levels until after 11 years. Why? Because people started getting guns in the black market and there were a few exceptions for gun ownership there. So the numbers started to rise. And finally, criminals were saying, gee, I wonder if there's a gun in that house again, which they used to say in Australia. So they're not going to go barge into the house. Bondi's Justice Department denies that they pushed the judge to demand the names. There's no constitutional justification for the judge to demand the names since this is a suit for injunctive action. This is what I wrote. So I finished the quote. I just said there's no constitutional justification for the judge to demand the names since this is a suit for injunctive action, not recompense. Okay. And it should apply not only to the plaintiffs, but to all of the people in that age group. And then there's the fact that the U.S. Constitution prohibits any infringement anyway. So you have just the basic structural foundation of this within the courts. Okay. Nobody has to be compensated for this. So they don't have to name anybody. The organizations are the names, not their members. Those members don't have to be revealed. The organizations are the part of the action suit. They're not required to give up any information at all. The judge can't require that. But that's what Bondi got the judge to do. So let me give you this quote from the article. The court order is itself limited. It applies only to the small subset of members already identified, verified, and residing in the Fifth Circuit, Mississippi, Louisiana, and Texas. The majority outside that jurisdiction appear unaffected. So all this does is it applies to those people under 20 or 20 and under who live in that jurisdiction. But it sets the precedent outside the Fifth Circuit. For anybody that age, if a case like this comes, they should abide by that. And you don't even need stare decisis on this because those kids have a right to be able to defend themselves. So Gun Owners of America has this, and they've got the documents. They show what they've got, the letters. Look, check this out. This is from the case. The practical result of any injunction that would apply to a host of individuals, unknown to defendants or to the court, would make compliance with such injunction a practical impossibility. To avoid contempt under such an injunction, defendants might be necessitated to prohibit the application of the challenged laws nationwide. But such a result would in effect grant the plaintiffs all the benefits of being granted a universal injunction, which, as previously explained, would both exceed this court's jurisdiction and be contrary to the court decisions of other courts of appeals. No, completely wrong. Wrong. The Constitution is clear. The Second Amendment is clear. It's universal. You say it. It's not in the Constitution, and you're done. This is what came from the court. And at the end of it, they've got this. Within 21 days of issuance of this judgment, those plaintiffs identified at paragraph 2B shall provide to defendants a verified list of their members as of November 6th. So again, just to be clear about this, let me show you that on the screen. Again, the individuals were hidden on this, the kids, 18 to 20. These organizations represented their interests and brought the suit. Now Pam Bondi tells the judge, Robert Summerhays, you've got to get the names of the people who are being affected in the Fifth Circuit, who are part of these organizations. And these organizations have to turn over their lists of members who are that age, and all their members, in fact, so we can sift through it. That's what Pam Bondi's Justice Department did. And they're just outright deceiving people. I mean, any logical person who knows anything about this system of jurisprudence knows what happened there. You don't have to be DC Drano to figure it out. It's amazing. It just blows my mind. People think that there's some sort of weird opaque wall about the law. It's really easy. It's very simple to figure this out. Wow. Amazing. So let me wrap things up, everybody, with what's going on with Trump now as he's getting ready to invade these states. All right. Again, should be very simple. People can read the Constitution. He's going to go to San Francisco first, the Spumoni-like hodgepodge of wild architecture. Here it is. This is the story. Trump reveals which major U.S. city. Oh, look, it's like a pageant. Whoa. And now behind door number 3 is San Francisco. You got it. Donald Trump on Wednesday announced federal law enforcement will next set its eyes on San Francisco, commending the FBI's more than 23,000 violent criminal arrests, which he said is more than double the number arrested in the final year of the Biden administration. Again, what statutes? Are they federal statutes? Why are you there? Have you been invited in? Or are you just invoking the Insurrection Act? Can you protect those government buildings, the federal buildings, or are they there in a very weird, blurry, fuzzy line that isn't actually covered by the Constitution? Oh, that's right. It's the latter. Now, fresh from the courts, and we get to hear Perry Mason again because he rocks. Hit me, Perry. Hit me with your Perry Mason theme if you can. We want to hear a little something about, you got it, another block that came today. Well, this one has to do with, you got it, some of the criminal activity of the U.S. government in Chicago and Portland and L.A. All right, thank you, and let's go with it right now. Here is the story. I want to discuss this with you. From the courts, fresh news regarding Chicago, Illinois, and masked ICE goons. So here it is. The latest. Federal immigration officers in Chicago are required to wear body cameras, a judge says. Federal immigration officers in Chicago area will be required to wear body cameras, U.S. District Judge Sarah Ellis said Thursday after seeing tear gas and other aggressive stops used against protesters. Community efforts to oppose U.S. immigration and customs enforcement have ramped up in the nation's third largest city, where neighborhood groups have assembled to monitor ICE activity and film incidents involving agents. More than 1,000 immigrants have been arrested since September, and a lot of Americans have as well. In fact, a lot of immigrants who came over promised that they'd be safe under the Biden administration now are being treated as criminals when they came over as non-criminals. Isn't that cute? For example, a guy who came here legally years ago but was deported, that journalist from Georgia who got caught while he was covering an ICE raid in Georgia, well, he's describing his life in El Salvador. And as I mentioned in the news notes, it's heartbreaking what you read about this guy. Georgia-based reporter deported to El Salvador is talking about his situation, and it is heartbreaking. So here's the info for you. Just a little taste of what's going on. 2 weeks after being deported to his home country in El Salvador from the United States, journalist Mario Guevara has opened up about his experience. It's difficult times, especially since my heart is divided, Guevara told 11 Alive News, his former TV station, in a recent interview. I really miss my family. My family's separated. Just yesterday, went to the airport to say goodbye to my 2 kids as they return to my second country. I believe the United States is my country, even if right now they don't love me anymore. Guevara was detained by ICE as he was reporting on a No Kings protest June 14th. The 48-year-old journalist filmed his own arrest because he was live streaming. Talk about bizarre. Guevara was granted bond in July, but ICE challenged his release to the Board of Immigration Appeals. They requested his bond be put on hold while the appeal was under review, Guevara's lawyer said. And, of course, they shipped him off. In September, the Board of Immigration Appeals raised the specter of the reporter's imminent deportation after it reopened his 13-year-old immigration case. The American Civil Liberties Union, whose lawyers are part of Guevara's legal team, called for an emergency hearing regarding the ruling and a temporary restraining order to stop his potential deportation. But the appeal, as we know, because you were watching the show then, was denied and he was expelled October 3rd. So now he's in El Salvador. And here's this from one of his children. Oscar Guevara, the detained newsman's son, spoke of the pain of having his father deported. Words cannot begin to describe the loss and devastation my family feels. I wonder how MAGA responds to this. Oh, it's your own fault. You're suffering your own actions. You should have known better. I am in utter shock and disbelief. The government has punished my father for simply doing his life's work of journalism. My father should never have to face over 100 days in detention. He is the center of our family. He is the reason our home feels like home, the younger Guevara said via a news release from the ACLU. He's my rock, and I don't know what life without him here will look like now that he will be deported. When I was diagnosed with a brain tumor in 2021, it was my dad who centered me, who drove me to my medical appointments, and who lifted me up. Now I will have to manage my health care on my own and live thousands of miles away, separated from him. Can you imagine if one of them loses his or her life and is gone? You can't be there. My family has been torn apart for no good reason, and I can only hope that we can one day be reunited. After spending time adjusting to his new life back in El Salvador, the journalist said he's ready to get back to reporting with his Spanish-language MG News outlet, as well as continuing to pursue freelance opportunities. I wonder if I could contact him through that MG News outlet, see if we could get him on to talk to him. That could be pretty cool. It'd be interesting. Maybe get his voice out here. I don't know. Yeah, I might try it. Got to get more time to invite more guests on too. Okay. And by the way, thanks for the pluses about the conversation with Tiger and Jacob Hornberger. That was super cool. Appreciate it, you guys. Now, ICE, remember that report we had where ICE claimed that they get slammed by that red car in just outside of Chicago, a suburb? Well, they're still claiming they get ran by the car, even though the video shows it was completely the opposite way around. They're still making the claim. Check it out. Illegal migrants sparked riot after ramming attack on Border Patrol SUV in Chicago, say officials. Yeah, they're actually saying that. They said illegal immigrants were behind the attack on a Border Patrol convoy that sparked a dangerous car chase and a riot in Chicago. Yeah, it wasn't the presence of ICE in people's neighborhoods, and it wasn't them high-speed chasing people down the street, which is all on video. The guys, we found out later, they were arrested soon after they left the vehicle after the car wreck. So they were both arrested. The pair were arrested soon after the alleged attack, but not before it spread chaos across the neighborhood. And they claim the fact that this attack was carried out by two illegal immigrants highlights the need for federal law enforcement to continue to do their job of enforcing the laws of our nation. Is this not utterly bizarre? It's like, an abusive spouse saying the fact that my fist is bruised here means that I have to continue shoving your face against my fist. It always has to continue entering the presence of your cheekbones and your gut and your rib cage. Full extension. It's insane. It's just nuts. And there are people speaking out about it, like the deputy mayor of Chicago. Now, this might have a little commercial thing going here, but I want to show you this video right at the start, and then we'll take their little commercial break thing. But this is worthwhile. This is MSNBC, again, doing a good job with the deputy mayor of Chicago. You can see Chicago leaders are slamming immigration agents for using tear gas to disperse a crowd that gathered after this car collision. Deputy Chicago Mayor of Office of Immigrant, Migrant, and Refugee Rights, Beatrice Ponce de Leon, great name, joins Ariel Reshev to share her reaction to the tactics. So we're going to go back a little.
Are reckless. They're lawless.
Joining us now, Beatrice Ponce de Leon, Chicago Deputy Mayor for Immigrant, Migrant, and Refugee Rights. Deputy Mayor, thanks so much for taking the time to be with us. We've seen tense interactions between residents and federal agents now for weeks. We've seen the videos of it. In the past few days, immigration agents used tear gas to disperse a crowd that gathered after a collision between Border Patrol and a car that they were pursuing. It was really dangerous. You can see it here. What do you make of these tactics?
Well, thank you for having me this morning. And, first and foremost, these federal agents are reckless. They're lawless. They're doing things that are putting Chicagoans in harm's way. And they're not needed here. We clearly do not need a militarized presence to do immigration law enforcement in Chicago.
Governor Pritzker says he believes federal agents are violating a judge's order that sought to rein in the use of chemical agents on protesters. You saw some white smoke there billowing. If they are not respecting that court order, is there anything that the city can do about it?
Unfortunately, these federal agents respond to no one. They are likely in violation of that court order. The courts have been on our side in Chicago and in Illinois and in Cook County. It is difficult to hold them accountable. But we are doing what we can through executive orders as well to set up ICE-free zones and to reinforce our welcoming city ordinance and the policies that we have to keep immigration enforcement at bay.
I'd love to get your thoughts here. The New York Times is reporting that some Chicago residents are forming volunteer groups to monitor their neighborhoods. They're creating signal chats when they see agents in the area. And, quote, if agents are spotted on the street, motorists lean on their horns as a warning and sometimes give chase. In your mind, though, is there a danger that this could further inflame the tensions with ICE agents, with other federal law enforcement, even endanger residents at some point? How are you advising your residents to handle the situation?
So they are endangering residents. That's the point. The existence of government, the state, endangers every person. It steals from them and always is a constant threat against them. But the presence of these occupiers going into this city is very clearly putting people in danger, because we just saw them going in a high-speed chase.
We are advising our residents to exercise their First Amendment rights, to do what they can to stand up for what is just and what is really needed in Chicago. So residents, it is pretty incredible, the unified stance that we have here in Chicago, both at the community level as well as with city, county, and state government. There is a risk to always speaking up, and there is a risk to calling out and alerting people that ICE is there. But people are taking the risk that they feel comfortable with. In the case of, agents were chasing a car and they are the ones who rammed into that car, then they tell a different story. What happened in this community, and we've seen in other neighborhoods, is that neighbors come out to take care of each other. They alerted folks that there was immigration enforcement on the ground, and they have come together and are trained to do that as safely as possible.
Chicago Deputy Mayor Beatrice Ponce de Leon, thank you so much for...
Okay, so, yep, and if you're in the Chicago area, my hat's off to you, and I'm sorry you're going through what you're going through. This woman has had enough. This is pretty epic against the New York attack of people. This is really, really worth watching, and she swears her head up, but it's worth it. I wish I saw the unedited version, but I'll just show you a little bit of how angry she was.
Stupid bitch. That's why y'all a bunch of criminals. I wish you would. I wish the would. Yes, the his family. Y'all a bunch of big.
Yeah, so he goes, oh, you want to get started? You want to get started? And then they approach her and say, you want to get arrested? She's like, what are you going to arrest me for? Nothing. Nothing.
Don't we don't like none of you. You okay? No, how can I be okay? You okay? Are you okay? Are you okay? I look like I'm okay? Don't come up in my face.
He's trying to provoke her. The dude is trying to provoke her. You okay? You okay? Because he knows he's going to go back home and have dinner. He'll be completely fine. Somebody in her life is screwed.
Meet your new Dell PC with Intel inside.
But that's okay because he's getting her money to do this sort of thing. And she goes on, but I'll skip away from that. I want to also give you this little bit. This is the final thing that I want to give to you. A British booktuber and culture commentator. He's a little bit off base on a few things that he puts forward in this video. And if you watch, the whole library of stuff that he puts out, he's very left socialist sort of guy. But he has discovered Stephen Miller's favorite book. So as I say, this British booktuber and culture commentator is off base on a number of topics, but his observations on Stephen Miller's self-confessed favorite book are striking. So check this out, everybody. And got to do this. And here we go. All right.
Existed.
They're doing it again. This is just frustrating. I'm sorry. Anyway. It'd be nice if I could I got to get that blocker, but I just don't trust I don't trust a place to download the blocker, and I can't use Brave, unfortunately, which would be great. Okay, so let's get back to it.
The thing that the dullest, least interesting people of our time have discovered that even they can do to get attention. Become a fascist. Now, you'd think, wouldn't you? You'd hope that a man in the position of senior advisor to the president for policy would have a certain intellectual hinterland. You hope he'd be reading, things, books. You'd hope he'd be grappling with the great works. A bit of Keynes, perhaps. A bit of Adam Smith. Maybe he'd have a well-thumbed copy of Machiavelli. You'd hope. Stephen...
Take Keynes off that list, by the way. That's children's literature.
Miller does have a favorite book, and it's not The Art of the Deal. It's a French science fiction novel from 1973 called The Camp of the Saints. A novel set in a near future, an alternate history in which Europe is destroyed by invaders from India. I'd like to apologize to India. We know this because in leaked emails from 2015, the Stephen Miller, unprompted, suggested the Pope should read this book. You have to really love a book to recommend it to God's representative on earth. Now think about this. In 2015, Stephen Miller was only 30. So to love a book that much, he probably read it in those influential teenage years. So when any normal millennial teenager was watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer and becoming hopelessly addicted to slow-loading internet pornography, Stephen Miller was reading science fiction. That fucking sicko. But not just any science fiction. Far-right, racist science fiction. Science fiction that the Southern Poverty Law Center, who look into these sorts of things, described as being widely revered by American white supremacists and a favorite among neo-Nazis. So, not exactly.
So we have to pause there because the Southern Poverty Law Center is, of course, hardcore left-wing. They get a lot of money from sketchy places, I think, and they try to depict anybody as a racist fascist. But when you hear the content of this, I think you'll find it pretty interesting.
Exactly infinite jest, is it? And the plot. The plot of the book the policy advisor to the President of the United States likes is this. Are you ready? 1 million impoverished people from India get on 100 rusty boats and they sail to France. As a science fiction nerd, I have to point out that if you have 100 even rusty deep-sea ocean-going vessels, you already have the financial resources to enrich all of the 1 million people on those boats. So there goes any internally consistent logic, and the entire West collapses. Not because of an army, not because of weapons, but because of compassion. Yes, the central argument of the book, the big idea, is that caring about other people is a civilizational weakness. That humanitarianism is a suicide pact. It's basically the novelization of Elon Musk saying that empathy is weakness, and the immigrants, the saints of Rasbale's ironic title, well, they're not really characters. They're described as an endless cascade of human flesh, an anthill slashed open. And their leader is a character referred to as the Turd Eater. The Turd Eater. Because he eats turds. It's not a subtle book. It's not a book that's big on subtext. The villain is a man who eats feces, but the book's title does have a double meaning, because it is heavily implied by Raspail that the true saints are the ones who are prepared to, wait for this, wait for it, defend civilization and kill the immigrants. And this is the book that informs the worldview of the man shaping American immigration policy.
Yeah. It's Stevie and M. I run these halls like I run my mouth. Debate team, model UN. Lunch, I'm living the jungle like poetic school.
Got safety protocols? So there's more that I want to give to you, because he actually has some video footage of Stephen Miller before he was Mr. I'm shaving my head and all that stuff, to show you the guy's mentality. So let me just go back and show you a little bit more here. He says, who is sick and tired of being told to pick up my trash?
You can keep your street cred. I got print cred. Gangsta debate.
So let's.
He says, you're paid to do it for us.
Be fair. Jean Raspail, the author of Camp of the Saints, isn't some weirdo self-publishing on Kindle. Up until his death in 2020, Raspail was a highly regarded man of letters in France and beyond, even winning a Grand Prix de Roman from the Académie Française. I mean, a racist Frenchman. What a shock. Raspail was a traditional conservative Catholic who imagined in his novels the fall of liberal society and the return of natural hierarchy, including the crowning of a new French king in his 1990 novel, Sire. The Camp of the Saints has been translated into multiple languages of nations with considerable fascist populations and sold around 500,000 copies. It's also far from the only example of racist science fiction. From its early history, science fiction has allowed authors to dream of utopias. In the publishing boom of the 1800s, hundreds of utopian science fictions were published. Elizabeth Burgoyne Corbett's New Amazonia, A Foretaste of the Future, 1889, Mary Griffith's 300 Years Hence, 1836, or dystopias like Mary Shelley's The Last Man, 1826, to name just a few. But regressive fantasies also found popularity. Published in 1869, only 4 years after the American Civil War, The Princess of the Moon, a Confederate fantasy by Cora Seams Ives, includes the Southern hero killing his black former slave and his Yankee allies. The popular genre of invasion literature, including the Battle of Dorking, 1871, imagined Britain invaded by everyone from Germans to Africans to the Chinese. H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds is a cutting parody of this racist genre. Ironically, alien invasions in 1950s America became a metaphor for the anti-communist Red Scare, with television shows like The Invaders literally showing the dead aliens glowing bright red. The tendency towards fascism in sci-fi was parodied by the legendary Norman Spinrad in The Iron Dream. In an alternate reality, a young Adolf Hitler immigrates to the United States and becomes a successful sci-fi writer. For a deeper dive into the stinking waters of far-right sci-fi, you can read Jordan S. Carroll's Hugo Award-winning Speculative Whiteness, which has much more to say about fascist sci-fi screeds like Francis Palmer-Yuki's Imperium and the infamous Turner Diaries. But the far-right would likely have remained a tiny, shrieking minority in sci-fi, if not for the emergence of the internet and online culture. Gamergate and the Sad Puppies were two explosions of culture wars in online fandoms that preempted the dynamics that would also give us Donald Trump and now Stephen Miller. Because in the ever-escalating contest for clicks, the war of all against all for your attention, being a bit fascist became a winning strategy. Now, I don't want this to appear biased, so I think we should take a moment to feel some empathy for Stephen Miller, which of course he would never be weak enough to feel for us, and imagine his experience as a man with the natural charisma of a pale, angry thumb in a suit, who looks like you peeled a potato and it's disappointed in you. Imagine this man's experience of high school. Play back every American high school drama you've ever seen and ask yourself, who was Stephen Miller in that drama? And I'll tell you that Stephen Miller wasn't even the kid getting beaten up by Ben Affleck, who presumably had some talents at chess or musical theatre, or were future tech billionaires that incited the envy of the dudes doomed to 9 to 5 for their entire adult lives. No, Stephen Miller was Nobody. He went to school day after day, and nobody even noticed he existed. Nobody paid him the slightest attention. And then, I'm speculating here, but go with me, then Stephen Miller finds the camp of the Saints, and furtively, in secret, under the bed covers, when any normal millennial male is developing a healthy sexual fetish for dressing like a My Little Pony, Stephen Miller discovers the erotic thrill.
So you can tell that he's obviously taking a hardcore left-wing approach and applying certain characteristics to people that really are not fascists and they're not racist and things like that. But I want to get to this last little bit here from him as he has this clip of Stephen Miller finishing off.
It gets him attention. We have actual recordings of Stephen Miller on the school bus, impressing other kids with his racist banter.
I think the ideal solution would be to cut off their fingers.
Friends from Miller's school recall him disowning a Latino friend when he discovered he wasn't actually white. Miller was known in his high school for regularly protesting school board meetings against the use of Spanish in classes. He repeatedly told Latino students to speak English and presumably got beaten up. Miller escapes being nobody by becoming a racist.
So here's the way that I interpret some of the information that I thought was valuable coming out of that. Like I said, not all of it is right on. For all his psychoanalysis and spoof psychoanalysis and speculation, very clearly, Stephen Miller admitted that was either one of his favorite book or one of his favorite books, or incredibly formative book. And if you look up information about this, it's pretty harshly anti-Indian. It's a very strange book, and I don't imagine how anybody would ever pick it as one of their favorite books. Then you've got the other background of he did separate from a friend of his because he found out the dude wasn't white. And then you've got the statements about, well, you're here in school, you should speak English. That's the sort of thing that even many traditional conservatives who can't seem to get past the idea that the government shouldn't be involved with education will argue, well, the education system should be run this way because it's best for people to learn English because they need to assimilate. It's a traditional sort of conservative argument. There's some credence to it to say learn English, assimilate, understand, get a job, don't go on welfare, that sort of thing. So teach English, have kids understand English. But I can imagine that the mindset of a teenager who is very steeped in that sort of argument is parallel to somebody who also really doesn't like immigrants at all. And I think that's being manifest right now he's got his hands on the U.S. military. Don't forget, he was behind the early attacks on the first couple of Venezuelan boats. He was the one who worked with Hegseth on that. So now he's in a position where he can literally destroy or take people's lives. And that's the kind of mindset the guy's got. So he grows up within that area where if he had been open to a little more dynamics, maybe he would have fallen out of saying the schools should be run this way, and maybe say, well, maybe I'm arguing with other people who want the schools run a different way, and I don't have the right to tell them, and they don't have the right to tell me, so maybe we shouldn't force each other to pay for it, which would be the peaceful way. No, it's got to be done this way, because America has to be his way. That's why people kill each other. That's why people shoot other people, because there's so much at stake, because the government touches so much in our lives. There's virtually nothing around you that they don't touch. So, he's making some valid points there. He's bringing up some information about that book. I don't necessarily need to see that to not like Stephen Miller and think he's a very dangerous person. But it is interesting to find out about that and see those clips where he just utterly degrades people, or he's trying to play up his confidence and bravado, talking about migrants. You clean my stuff. You get paid for that. Do what you're told, sort of nonsense. Or cut off their fingers. Maybe he's talking about Islamic people or something like that. Who knows, right? But that's the sort of bravado that if you got to talk to somebody, you'd say, are you really serious about that? I think we can see that he was serious about it, and he's gotten to where he wants to be. Maybe he wants to go even further. I hope he's out of office very soon, out of his bureaucracy. Unbelievable. Well, I better hit the road, everybody. Thanks for sticking. This is great. I really appreciate it. Really, really cool. And Skunk Hollow, Harm's Way is the best Kirk Douglas movie. He's a scumbag that sexually assaults this beautiful, nice young girl. Yeah, John Wayne movie. Ferb. Good to have you there, Ferb. And let's see. Oh, you know, the streaming stuff. I got to start watching some movies again. I haven't had time. You know, it's just one of those deals. So I'm going to hit the road. I'll leave you with one final bit for those people who are super patriotic, because we all know that the father of a U.S. Marine should have been arrested and deported by ICE. 100%. In fact, the Marine should have arrested him himself. Get rid of your father. Snitch. Totally Soviet Union. Hi. I'm going to hit the road. Thanks, everybody, for hanging. This has been an interesting night and a little disruption on the presentation, but hopefully some good information out there. And I'll call Comcast. I'm sure they'll respond rapidly and give you an apology. I'll leave you with the Fall Guy. Thanks. Have a good one.
Well, I'm not the kind to kiss and tell, but I've been seeing.
Don't forget, no show tomorrow night. Sorry about that. And, of course, share the links. I'll see you in David Knight's chat. Peace.
With fire up, I've never been with anything less than a 9. So fine, I've been on fire with Sally Field, gone fast with a girl named Bo, but somehow they just don't end up as mine. It's a death-defying life I lead. I take my chances. I die for living in the movies and TV. Thing I ever do is watch my leading ladies kiss some other guy while I'm bandaging my knee. I might fall from a tall building, I might roll a brand new car, 'cause I'm the unknown stuntman that made Redford such a star. Spent much time in school, but I taught ladies plenty. It's true, I hire my body out for pay. Hey, hey, I've gotten burned over Cheryl Teague's, blown up for Raquel Welch. But when I wind up in the hay, it's only hay. Hey, hey, I might jump an open drawbridge or Tarzan from a vine, 'cause I'm the unknown stuntman that makes Eastwood look so fine.